In the business meeting of July 11th with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everyone.
Monica Duran.
Here.
Zachary Urban.
Present.
Janice Hoppy.
Present.
Tim Fitzgerald.
Here.
Larry Matthews.
Present.
Genevieve Wooden.
Present.
George Pond.
Present.
And Madam Mayor, Christy Davis informed me that she would be absent this evening, and we have a quorum. And I want to just announce to everybody, we have a new color of sign-up sheet. The gold sheet is to sign up for study session items, and then there are two others for just general, if you want to say something nice or complain or whatever about just something in general. And then there's another sheet for agenda item topics for the regular meeting. So be sure to sign up on the right sheet.
And we'll also be taking all of those comments together, or of course grouped individually, other than the business agenda items, which will be the regular system. All right, we have I need to approve the minutes of June 27 and special study notes of June 27. Do I have any changes to those minutes or additions? Seeing none, they are approved as presented. And now I believe we have a special proclamation from Active Transportation Advisory Team. Is that correct? Didn't I see Rachel? Not quite ready? Or?
Rachel? Yep.
Yep. We're ready. Ride your bike up. Okay. All right.
Good evening. So we are with the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation Advisory Team. We are a grassroots organization that works with our community and with the city to make Wheat Ridge an even better place to walk, ride a bike, and connect with transit. We are really excited tonight to present these two bikes to the city, but you can't have them until you hear the story about how you're getting them. So earlier this year, we were contacted by the Wheat Ridge Police Department, and every year the Wheat Ridge Police Department ends up with, in any calendar year, they end up with a whole bunch of bikes that they get, that they've even found on city property, have been turned in through various different ways. We don't always know the stories of the bikes. But at the end of the year, the Wheat Ridge Police Department has to get rid of the bikes, and traditionally they've held an auction and invited the public to come in and bid on the bikes. This year, we were really grateful that the Wheat Ridge Police Department contacted us and asked if we had a use for the bikes. And we always say yes. Whenever someone asks us if we can do something, we try and say yes. So we got our heads together and said, this is a really great opportunity for us to refurbish some bikes and get them back out into our community to people who need bikes. So we said yes, and in February, the Wheat Ridge Police Department donated 23 bikes to the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation Advisory Team, also known as the ADATs. Now, most of these bikes were in pretty good shape. One was a total scrap, and we're going to make an awesome piece of art out of it. That's coming. But we were really excited to have these bikes to work with. So leveraging our existing relationships with the community, what we did is said, what if we could turn 23 bikes into 46 bikes? So we started the Bikes and Book campaign, in which we asked our community to, during their spring cleaning, clean out their garages and find any bikes that their kids have outgrown, that they're no longer riding, and donate them to us. And through partnerships with local businesses, we were able to give all of those people who donated bikes to us a $50 package of thank yous from Right Coast Pizza and Wheat Ridge Cyclery, Fido's Grub and Tub, Ricoli's. So then all of a sudden we had 46 bikes. We also had 6 scooters. So again, through our relationships with the community and through our partnership with the city, we were able to get sponsorship from Wheat Ridge Cyclery to donate all the parts. we were able to leverage volunteer hours of over 15 volunteers in our communities who spent a very cold afternoon in April fixing up all the bikes. We then were able to get sponsorship and underwriting from Lutheran Hospital for helmets, from Genesee Commercial Property for locks, and then through Prop Realty, I think is their name, for lights for the bikes. We then all of a sudden had these fantastic bikes and one future piece of art that we wanted to get back out to the community. So in May, through our partnership with the Wheat Ridge Education Alliance, we redistributed 10 bikes to Pennington Elementary and Color Strand. And these bikes were matched with kids in need, and it was really fantastic. None of the kids knew they were getting the bikes. We've also been able to match, I should say not all the bikes donated were kids' bikes. We got a lot of adult bikes too, as you're seeing here. We've been able to match bikes with residents who are in need of a bike. And some of the stories are actually really moving and touching. But what's been great is when we've seen people on social media or in our community say, I really need a bike. I need it for transportation. I need it because I'm trying to invest in our health. We've been able to step up and say, we have a bike. But when we say we have a bike, we're saying our entire community has a bike. If you think about all of the city agencies and the city businesses and our residents who have put their time and resources into fixing up these bikes, we are literally saying the community of Wheat Ridge has a bike for you. So this is a program we're incredibly proud of. And we have not gotten rid of all of our bikes, and they're stored at Scott's house. So this is Saint Scott who's holding our bikes for us. But through that, we've been able to respond to people in need, and we're really excited to gift back to the city of Wheat Ridge 2 bikes. And we are hoping you will accept on our behalf and on your behalf and our community's behalf these bikes to be kept, one at City Hall and one at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center, that are available for city staff to use, whether they need to run a local healthy errand or if they want to ride for recreation or exercise during the very few breaks that they get. We are gifting these back to you because these have been a huge gift to our community. And with them come helmets and locks and packs, and they have AT-AT stickers on them. So on behalf of the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation Advisory Team, we want to thank our entire community for this, and we really want to thank the city of Wheat Ridge for always being a strong partner in how we can take a small investment and leverage it into a great outcome. So thank you very much. And Scott, do you have anything? Scott is really, I'm talking, but this guy's the one who made it happen. So Scott, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I guess really Rachel hit the nail on the head when she said it's something that we got the community together to give the bikes as a community to somebody. And it was really incredible to see, like when we asked for volunteer mechanics, how many people came and showed up and helped, even though it was cold and it was unpleasant, and everybody had a great time. So hopefully we'll be able to keep giving back.
I think we ought to give them a round of applause.
I just want to thank council members Pond and Wooden actually donated their kids' bikes that they'd outgrown, so extra credit for you guys. Thank you. So thank you guys.
So there's going to be one bike at City Hall and one at the Recreation Center. So Patrick and I will fight over one at City Hall, and someone else will fight over the other one. Thank you for doing that. That is just fabulous. Okay. We can go ahead and move to citizens' right to speak. And we will start. We'll start with items that are on our general citizens' right to speak. So let's start with Christine Disney. And please give the spelling your last name and your address.
Mayor, I'd like to give my position to Paul.
Okay.
And let him go first.
Are you asking for the additional 3 minutes, or are you just switching?
Just letting him move the line in front of me.
Okay, Paul, okay.
My name is Paul Balaguer. It's spelled Balaguer. I live at 4373 Peach Court in Boulder. I'm the race director for the bicycle portion of the Ridge 38 Criterium Bicycle Race and Brewfest. We just had our third annual race on June 12th. It was a huge success this year. We were named the state championships, the Colorado State Criterium Championships this year. It is something that is unheard of for a third-year race. We're very, very proud of that. We added the Brewfest this year. It was a huge success. And I came by to say that a huge component of that success is the support that we get from the City of Wheat Ridge employees. It's been extensive from a bunch of different departments. In the police department, J.D. Jepkema and John Pickett led the charge, but there were I want to say over 60 officers out there that day, and I might be underestimating it. We had a huge amount of help from the police department. Public Works, Jim Killey was a star getting the course ready to go. The racers were extremely complimentary of that. Steve Wynn with the engineering department was very helpful. The local works crew who puts together the whole event is an outstanding team. And I want to add that I have extensive experience coordinating events. I directed Ride the Rockies for 22 years. I coordinated the U.S. Pro Challenge for Boulder when Boulder hosted it the first time they hosted it. And in those roles, I've worked with probably over 100 jurisdictions around the state, municipalities, counties, and I know that people come here to complain about some things, but I came to say something. You said, you could say something nice or complain. I came to say something nice, which is that I wanted to stand here tonight and tell you that the support that we receive in putting on this event from the City of Wheat Ridge, from my experience in working with over 100 jurisdictions, is second to none. The police department, the public works department, it used to be the fire department, it's now West Metro Fire Protection District. Public Works, engineering have been an outstanding help to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
If anyone had any questions about the race, I'd be happy to take them.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. And now, Christine?
Hi, my name is Christine Disney, D-I-S-N-E-Y, and I live in District 2. Last January, I was very excited. I sat in a room with 700 people, and at the end of a fun and respectful process, there was a clear outcome for a 3-lane design in the Create Your 38 process. The next 2 meetings further enforced the citizens' desire for 3 lanes on 38th. It was a fair process and an outcome that came at the direction of City Council. Before us tonight is a compromise of the Create Your 38 process. That, in the true nature of a compromise, is not what anyone wants. I know I'm not sitting where you are, and I don't fully comprehend what you have to do to consider things that come before you. However, I am asking you to please not put this on the ballot this fall.
Study session.
We are all exhausted, council and citizens. Please do not put us through another election that divides the city and pits citizens against each other. At the very minimum, we told you we wanted 3 lanes, end of story. All of the data shows that 3 lanes is working, sales tax is up, response times are faster, people are driving slower. If there is a way to achieve this without a vote, just do it. The design may not be perfect, but in the end it's something, and we need to move forward. If this is on the ballot in the fall, it will fail. The 4 to 5 lane default is an abomination and a slap in the face to the 1,000 people that participated in the Create Your 38 process. We are letting businesses that have not kept up with current business practices and some that are on life support dictate how this city moves forward. You have been given a direction. Just do it. It's time for the city to have a Main Street, and the citizens have told you that we want 3 lanes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was in regard to item 1, which is a study session item, which is fine. I'm going to continue asking for regular comments that are not directed toward the study session. So I will get all of those afterward, just to kind of keep them together in a cluster. So I'm going to, Jean, if you'll just sit tight, we'll get to you in a minute. So I'm going to stay with my non-study session items, which will include John Clark over on Swadley. Thanks, John.
If I mention 38th, I'm in trouble?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name is John Clark. I live at 4665 Swadley. I've been coming down here for a couple years and taking my 3 minutes to tell you what I think. The last week or two have been kind of tough, and I kind of wore out, so I asked anybody else in my family if they had anything on their mind, and my two boys said, yeah, we'd like to go down and talk. So I'm just going to go ahead and let them talk, and probably stand here behind them if they need my help. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Evan?
Hello, my name is Evan Clark, and I live on 4665 Swally Street. I am 12 years old, and I will be going to Everett Middle School this coming year. Some of the things I do beside 4-H is I play the violin in orchestra, practice in track and field, and also play basketball. But I am here in part of the Jefferson County 4-H program to inform the community about our small but amazing fair. I would like to pass out a flyer telling a little bit about the fair. I live on what I like to call a micro farm with a miniature market steer, a Bordeaux, and a market boar. If any of you are wondering what a boar is, well then here's the answer. A boar is a market goat for me that originated in Dutch farms and then were imported into New Zealand as a huge source of food. So if you have the opportunity to try boar, I would highly recommend it. And my steer is a miniature Hereford steer that I bought through one of my 4-H friends. These are my show animals that will be at the Jeffco Fair, but there will be tons more animals. So if you do decide to come by the fair, it is at the Jefferson County Fairgrounds from August 10th to the 14th. And if you do come by, be sure to find me and say hi. And if you have any questions, come ask me. I also highly encourage you to come there on the 14th to the livestock auction and support the kids. But remember, all these kids are local and attend the Jeffco Fair to have a great time, show their animals, learn, talk to others, and the fair is just overall a great time. So I highly encourage if any of the city council members have any community outreach funds, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider sponsoring a belt buckle or jacket. And I hope you all remember that our fair is impossible without a supporting and wonderful community of Jeffco and Wheat Ridge. And before I wrap this up, I would like to pass around a belt buckle that I have won if anyone would like to check it out. Thank you all so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those of us, we were receiving up here flyers on the Jefferson County 4-H livestock auction, August 14th, which Evan was discussing with us. And thank you for bringing that to us. We're going to see his belt buckle now. Do we get to each wear it for a while? Probably not. Too heavy. And now we have Ian, or is it Ian? Ian Clark. Oh, let me take a look.
Hello.
Ooh, wow.
Hello, my name is Ian Clark, and I live at 4665 Swanley Street. I will be a junior this year at Wheat Ridge High School, where I am part of the Wheat Ridge STEM department, the advanced orchestra group playing the cello, and I also play the trombone in the Pride Band. I am part of the Jefferson County Fair, just like my brother noted. This year will be my third year in the 4-H program. The first year I joined 4-H, I showed meat rabbits, not to sell as meat though. The second year, I showed meat goats and took first in the market division of goats. This year, I will be showing both meat goats and meat rabbits, hoping to take both species to auction and sell them. The Jefferson County Fair is nothing like the other fairs, and definitely not like the other counties. Jefferson County is a small fair, and with the fair being relatively small, it allows the kids to know one another and help each other out with any questions or concerns they may have. It allows the kids to be a big part of the fair and allows them to be responsible for their decisions and knowing responsibility of taking care of animals. Before I joined 4-H, I had no idea how to even care for a goat. Didn't know what to feed it, how large their pen should be, and most importantly, not knowing that they will eat everything in sight if you let them. The 4-H program has taught me so much and has also taught me many lessons, not just about animals, but for life skills. For example, how to market a product, how to go out and look for sponsors to help, and most of all, to teach the kids about teamwork and how to get along with others even if you disagree on matters. As I wrap this presentation up, I would like to do our 4-H pledge. I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world. One last thing I would like to say is since the Jefferson County Fair is so small, we are always looking for partners to help raise the funds necessary to make our fair bigger and better each year. If any of the city council members have any spare community outreach funds and would like to sponsor a belt buckle for Grand Champion or a jacket for Reserve Grand Champion, that would greatly be appreciated. And thank you again for allowing me to talk tonight.
Thank you. And it sounds like 4-H is still a great experience for our youth. Okay, moving on with other non-agenda items. I'm going to call on Vivian Voss. Bose? I always do her name wrong. Voss. Oh, I said it right. Voss.
Wow, that's a tough one to follow.
Yes, it is.
And who'd have thought John Clark would have produced that? I think those are.
I refuse to comment on that. I'd be really walking into it, wouldn't I?
Great kids. Proud of them. So we have more than 3 minutes, right?
No, this is non-agenda items.
Okay. Hip hip hooray. Walmart has gone away. Do not lament Walmart not part of 38th and Wadsworth. Most of the people I know weren't going to shop there anyway. You've got 44th Avenue, you've got Colfax, and we do have a Walmart store in Wheat Ridge at Youngfield. But this seems to lead to a win-win as we get a better, friendlier development at 38th and Wadsworth. Thank you. Oh, Vivian Voss, 6920 West 47th Place.
And Fred Walker?
I'm Fred Walker. I live here in Wheat Ridge for many years. The first thing I want to mention is that the courts at Panorama Park have been repaired and the ball actually bounces the way it's supposed to. So that's quite a change for us. So we really appreciate you doing that. The other thing I want to compliment you on is that the intersection of Estes and 38th had a rather long pothole, and I called the city, and the next day they fixed it. So I appreciate that kind of quick service. The last thing I want to mention is that I'm one that wishes that the council would do as Councilman Matthews mentioned, that we must respect 1,000 people from CR8, your 38th, but the 78,000 who voted no on 2B don't count. I noticed that several people have commented that they would like to see 38th back the way it was. And I would appreciate that that's the action that you take. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Once again, that would be a study session item since we'll be discussing that tonight. But I'm going to call on Michael Ilio. Michael, are you there? Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm going to speak about that too.
On this under study session? Or
I didn't know. All I knew was not an agenda item for this session.
we will.
It'll be in the study session.
We will do all the study sessions next so that they're all in a group, okay? So I'll be calling on you soon, if that's what you're saying. You want to speak on item one.
I wanted to speak about the road diet in general, not necessarily the plan. I never got to see the plan, so I'm going to speak.
Council? member?
Yeah, so the reason why we're trying to get everybody who wants to speak on the study session agenda items in one group is because it's 2 different tapes and 2 different recordings. So then we can cross-reference back to that spot in the meeting if you want to just watch or just listen to the study session. So that's why we're trying to keep the regular business item, agenda items all in a row, and then the study session agenda items in a row. So that's why we're doing it that way.
Understand? Comfortable? Yeah, I know, Christine, we should have put you in the other one. I'll call for you.
Overlaps, I mean, I'm talking more general terms of just that one item.
Let's, if we can, let's just keep all of that general discussion around 38th in that one area so that it's easy that we will have that group as a reference, as a vocal or verbal reference later on. So Rachel Halton, are you speaking again on a different item? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Hulteen, and I live at 4690 Balsam Street. And I am using this time still as an active transportation advisory team officer. Just to let everybody know, we have quarterly meetings that are open to the general public. And our next quarterly meeting is tomorrow night. We're meeting at Colorado Plus, and we're really excited to have Wheat Ridge resident Rachel Bronson, who also happens to be the Bike Ped Associate Planner for the City of Denver, who's going to be doing a presentation on planning for safety and connectivity. So everybody's invited. We meet at Colorado Plus at 6:30. We just sort of have social mingling and an opportunity to chat with one another. And then starting at 7 o'clock, we'll have the presentation from Rachel Bronson. We'll also be providing updates on various initiatives that the city's working on, that the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation Advisory Team is working on, including our annual commuter and community preference survey that will launch tomorrow night. This is our third year in a row in which we have reached out to our community and asked them what's important to you about walking, riding a bike, and connecting with transit in Wheat Ridge. What's working, what isn't working, what would you like to see more attention to? We take this survey very seriously. It actually informs our leadership on where we want to put our energies and our attention to help ensure that Wheat Ridge works for everybody who wants to walk and ride a bike. So we hope to see you tomorrow night. And then every Thursday night through the end of August, we have cruiser crawls in partnership with Local Works. These are open to everybody. We meet at 6 o'clock across from Wheat Ridge Cyclery on the green. They're really fun. We ride our bikes to a different destination every week. Most of the destinations are within Wheat Ridge. Occasionally we go a little further afield to dabble in what Denver and Arvada and Edgewater have to offer. So this week we will be riding our bikes to iPie and enjoying great pizza and good beer. And we invite everyone to join us. We're every Thursday, 6 o'clock on the green, and they're all ages. We have lots of kids who join us, and we hope you guys will be there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Continuing with non-agenda items, Ginny Schwartzer.
Hello, I am Jenny Schwartzer, Schwartzer, and I live at 2990 Reed. So I also just want to say a thank you to the council for their continued support of Wheaties Academy. So I am one of the Wheaties this year. And so as a new member of this community, I've only moved here in December of 2014. So it's been a great opportunity to get engaged with the community and learn about all the great things that Wheat Ridge had to offer. When we were looking for a house, we actually chose Wheat Ridge because of the community programs that they had and things like Local Works and the activities that they had. So it's been a great opportunity for me to actually become an engaged citizen of the city. So I just want to say thank you for your continued support of programs similar to that. And I also just have a fun story to say. We just got a dumpster day, a grant application or grant for a dumpster through Local Works this weekend. We filled it within like 24 hours of getting the dumpster. So we might be wanting another one of those soon. But it was a great way for us to meet all the neighbors on our street, and everyone was so appreciative of things like that that can bring people together. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Jenny. I think I'm J.N. Allen? Janine? Okay. All right. We'll bump you then. Actually, we're about ready to start that. If you'd like to, go ahead. Oh. We're getting would it be okay if we just let her? I mean, this is all the group on study session 1, right? Yeah, we're just trying to get all the comments.
In study session notes, I will make a comment that the public comment is in the public comment of the regular meeting.
Are we okay with that? Okay, please come ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Janine Allen, and I live at 3415 Otis Street. And as a resident of Wheat Ridge, I actually have a question to ask each one of you, as well as to ask all of the members here and other people that are out there in Wheat Ridge. And the question is pretty simple. How well do individual citizens of Wheat Ridge know how they complement the greater whole? I ask myself that all the time. I ask my neighbors, and it's always a mixed bag. I was kind of concerned when I reviewed our financials and our budget, and I look at all the wonderful things that Wheat Ridge has to offer, what we do consistently, and what we need to do to improve. One of my greatest concerns is that I look around and I hear these stories of our neighbors, of people in our community that have stress and sometimes, personal financial obligations due to our lack of a sufficient sewer and storm drain system. And that really concerns me. And I don't know how people vote or how they look at the greater good. And I was reading through everything the DIRT task force put together, numbers, concerns, how we're evaluating everything. And so how do we vote as a community to ensure our neighbors? I mean, that's the great thing about voting, right? We all have the opportunity to vote how we see fit. And usually that boils down to two things: how we vote for ourselves and our family, and then the greater good of how we see is going to be best for either our country or our city. So once again, how do we as individuals of this city see how we complement the greater whole? I'm a huge supporter of 38th and Main Street for multiple reasons. I live nearby. I have seen it come alive. I frequent it. I think it's safer. I have a child that we ride our bikes up there. I think that the collaboration of bringing people together to state their opinions was excellent. And I just encourage everyone to really take a deeper look at what we have in front of us and to really consider, and I encourage you to go forward on 38th, 3 lanes, as well as to take into considerations the DIRT task force and what they found. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Okay, do I need to call Michael? I'll get to you.
Hello, Michael Ilo, 11302 West 38th Avenue. I'd like to talk about this road diet. In 2012, it was called the retrofit, part of a retrofit plan. It's on the website. It says it's only supposed to be 18 months to 2 years max. That was 4 years ago. That doesn't seem like a very honest thing to have on your website. Why is it still up there? The traffic studies are completed. There's no need for future studies. So the only reason I think that there's still 3 lanes instead of 4 lanes is political posturing. And I think that's unconscionable. There are people affected in a negative way by this 3-lane restriping. People can't stand the planters. 2015 surveys were mailed out to thousands of people, and the response showed overwhelmingly that people do not want 3 lanes. They don't want it to be permanent. So this retrofit plan should not include 3 lanes. And I don't think we should move forward on any plans until we move the street back to 4 lanes like our city government said. Otherwise, our city government looks like a liar. And I believe personally that there are many more lies surrounding this special interest agenda of getting this permanent 3-lane retrofit plan into our city. On January 20th, the mayor of our city, a council member, and the president of Local Works all said that the Create Your 38 process would not produce a plan that changed the road width. Well, we all know that is not true. They also said that the Create Your 38 process would respect the results of the 2014 2B election, which was mentioned earlier, where over 7,000 people voted no. We don't want those changes. That was ignored during the process. Kristen, the moderator, told everybody that she would include a 4-lane plan throughout. That didn't happen. She specifically told us to feel free widening the sidewalks, adding amenities, but stay out of the 60-foot row line. Therefore, you have to narrow the street. I don't think it is fair that $100,000 of our taxpayer money was spent for a lobbying effort, which is what the Create Your 38 process amounts to. And I don't think it's right that we can be told things that, in my opinion, are blatant lies by our representatives, board members, whatever, who all also have political affiliations with contributing money to special interest groups like the Wheat Ridge Wants 2B campaign. I think our representatives need to act as representatives and stop lobbying for special interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving along, I'm going to pull one more out of the page that was on this other, which is Joylyn Godness. Help me when you get there.
Good evening. My name is Joylyn Godinez, and I live at 4030 Reed Street with my husband and 2 small children. And I wanted to come tonight to, first of all, thank you all for your service and the time that you guys spend helping our city succeed. This is the first meeting that I've been able to attend, but I've watched many of them late, just as you all have been here late, and my family appreciates the time that you put into preparing for these meetings and attending them and helping our city succeed. Also, I wanted to say thank you for supporting organizations like Local Works and the events that and activities that Local Works provides for our city and our citizens. My family has only lived here about 2 years, but we've attended nearly every kind of activity that they put on, from the small ones, like Local Works Dines and Active, to Ridge Fest and the holiday lighting and the Criterium, and all of those activities, along with things like Wheaties Academy, which I'm also lucky enough to be a part of, are a shining light for, I think, so many other cities in the Denver metro area, and the opportunity to connect with our neighbors and have those face-to-face interactions, and invite our family and friends from neighboring cities to come and join us at those events and activities. All of those face-to-face interactions help remind our children and each other of the humanity and the neighborly love, and that is a big part of why we moved here to Wheat Ridge, was because of activities and events like that. And so I just want to thank you for supporting Local Works, and I also want to implore you to take those events and activities and put them to work in day-to-day activities, and please support a Main Street, a 3-lane Main Street, with gathering spaces for families such as mine to connect with other families and continue to invest our money and the businesses and support these local businesses and have places to gather and get together, because that's why we moved here. And so my husband and I spent a lot of time going to those Create Your 38 processes. We were both in first responders. He's a firefighter. I was a paramedic for over 10 years. And it was a lot of work for us to get our family to those activities, to have our say. And I implore you to respect the time that we put into those. So thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Jolene. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to call now from this list Jean Shirley.
Jean Shirley, 4495 Everett Drive. Arts and parks, fun and games, tax and spend, will it ever end? I feel the government is not listening to the citizens. They are not spending the money as they should be. We need to take the lists that given by the various departments, the city manager, the police department, the parks department. Did you ever read the list from the minutes of all the lists that they have to do, how much it's going to cost? I asked the city council to mark more in the need versus the wants. Need versus wants. There's a lot of spending is done where we really don't need it. Special interest groups want wants. We need a more effective work and taxes, time spent on improving businesses. And the population growth with high rises is not the answer. And as far as West 38th, I'll work on the study session with you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. Vivian Voss on item 1 in the study session, right?
Vivian Voss, VOS 6920 West 47th Place. First, I just want to bring a couple of things to the attention on the draft ballot language, 38th Avenue. I feel that if there's any money raised above the 4.5 million, that it should not be deposited in the capital improvement fund, but should be set aside into a special fund. What was that? Oh, okay. But should be set aside into a special fund for specifically 38th Avenue. This is where you're asking the tax increase to fund, and I think it should go back to, much like we're doing on the Fruitdale, extra money or escrow, whatever that account is actually being called. So I would ask that you put the extra money elsewhere, specifically for 38th Avenue. And then I'm wondering if adding a new community plaza as part of the 38th Avenue street design really is something that the citizens would look at and wonder, why am I paying for a new community plaza when it's really the street that we're trying to? So we'll just see how that plays out if you keep that on the ballot. And then it says on within the consensus design, number 6, somewhere maybe I've got the wrong one, where a specific item would take more money to maintain some of the amenities that we're putting in, and I suggest that if you're maintaining something on 38th Avenue, that if you have overage of 4.5 million, that you use that money to maintain whatever it is that you're putting on 38th Avenue that needs maintenance. And then it said the city would not be party to shared access agreements, and so I'm wondering who is party to the shared access agreements. Frankly, I'm not even sure what that means, so just a little clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lloyd Rogers. You know, you let one go, you gotta let them all go.
Lloyd Rogers, associated with Bizarre Hair Fashions, 7053 West 38th Avenue. I'm here to make comments about the streetscape. I saw a map, quite by accident, or one that I didn't even know was around, projected streetscape drawings. And in that, the parking in front of our building is converted to an outdoor eating area. I don't know who set this up. I'm hoping it was out of ignorance and not arrogance, because that is a parking, and I don't really want my customers be walking through an eating area, and I'm sure whoever supplies food to these people don't want that either. That's a private property. We've paid taxes on that for 40 plus years, and I certainly wish to see it remain parking. If you feel you need to do something to it, you can restripe it and I'd be happy. Beyond that, the streetscape that I saw, I think is fine. We need to put new paint on the barn and new curtains in the windows, but please don't take my parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Rachel Helton again.
Good evening. Again, I'm Rachel Hulteen at 4690 Balsam Street, and this is my third time up here tonight. And the two times I've been up here previously tonight, I've been wearing the hat of being an officer with the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation Advisory Team, and I'm up here now just as me. I'm a resident of District 2. I am a mom of a 10-year-old kid who's just learning how to ride his bike confidently this summer. And I really would like to speak to both agenda items 1 and 2 for the study session. I have been incredibly attentive to the 38th Avenue Main Street process. And my attention to that process is really anchored in the fact that my family chose to buy a house here in Wheat Ridge 4 years ago. And after 18 years in real estate, this is the first house that I bought. I walked into and knew I had just purchased the home I wanted to live the rest of my life in. And it's unsettling because I've always been a little bit transient in communities, and all of a sudden I'm anchored in a community that I'm thinking 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And with that type of horizon, a community needs to have a center point and a place of identity that is welcoming to all residents, encourages businesses, and demonstrates that we as a community have a vision for who we have been and who we want to be. A Main Street to me encompasses that. So when we talk about 38th Avenue Main Street, it quickly unravels into technical details about how many lanes, the width of the sidewalks, and even though I'm a transportation advocate for a living, to me Main Street is about wanting a Main Street and about a unified commitment to being a community that is deserving of a Main Street and values a Main Street. And there are 1,000 different ways to make a Main Street, and I believe most of the people on the dais, and I'm guessing because I know most of you who are in the audience, we understand that in Wheat Ridge making that Main Street's a little trickier maybe than in other communities, and that higher bar allows us to really look at the nuanced aspects of a Main Street, but we should not be questioning our dedication and commitment to a Main Street. So I personally believe 3 lanes is good. The data consistently has demonstrated that 3 lanes is safe, it's economically viable, it is something that services cars, services people who can't drive, and services the businesses. I also recognize that we as a community need to have additional tax revenue so we can serve our whole community beyond our Main Street. And I asked City Council to look with sincerity, and I just have to say, this is beeping, but it's my understanding that study session comments are okay.
3 minutes.
3.
Yeah.
We need revenue as a city to thrive, and I hope we can make that work through our Main Street. But I ask that City Council look seriously at the tax funding. And if this is not the year to make our Main Street work because there's lack of clarity on the technicalities of the Main Street, we can always defer that. We need revenue so that we can serve our streets and the rest of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker that I've listed is Kim Calamino. No, she's not keeping time.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Kim Calamino, 4070 Dover Street. I appreciate the challenges and the work and the efforts that council and staff have put into looking at 38th Avenue, but I'm sorry to say I cannot support what you're planning or considering putting forward on the ballot. This cobbled together retrofit plan for 38th Main Street that you're considering in no way represents what citizens have expressed as their preference and seems crafted simply for the convenience of a council who wishes to put a matter behind them rather than look to what would actually set the best course for Main Street. It doesn't represent a cohesive plan in and of itself, let alone a thoughtful approach to a larger picture evolving over time. I strongly urge you not to move this plan forward and to not ask for a sales tax increase to support it. Council advanced the the CREATE process to inform them on the community's wishes regarding 38th Main Street. If the total reconstruction plan that came out of that process would create protracted disturbances to businesses, cost more than council or citizens would like, those may be clear detractors to moving directly to that plan. But cost and construction disturbances are not the only things to consider, nor should they be seen as having no workarounds. And certainly there is no mandate for council to move forward with haste in a wrong direction because the citizen envisioned direction or something closely akin to it is not immediately attainable. With the community's wishes spelled out in the CREATE process, what council could and should now be doing is a deeper dive into the challenges and consequences of such a plan and how you might come closest to fulfilling the intent and desires of the community. What surveying, engineering, and other information are we still lacking? What conversations still haven't been had with the businesses? What available outside resources might be brought to bear? How might the project be staged over time? Do we fully understand the traffic challenges that may be coming with the West End project and the changes to Wadsworth? You still have homework to do, but you're jumping straight to the test and not even the right test, and certainly not with the right answers. Here's what I encourage you to consider instead. Stick with the Main Street we've got, charting a path forward, and clearly telling the community that you've not given up on the best that can be achieved. We can accept what we have now in the hopes that something greater can evolve over time. Instead, move forward with a larger sales tax question to address issues, infrastructure issues that would meet the needs across all districts. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that brings public comment to a conclusion, and we can move on with the regular business meeting. Was there anybody who wanted to respond to any of the comments? Because this would be the time to do so. Nope. Okay, let's move on to item number 1, which would be Mr. Larry Matthews to read that for us.
Item 1, Council Bill number 13-2016, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 11818 West 52nd Avenue from residential 1 R1 to mixed-use commercial TOD, MUC TOD, and mixed-use neighborhood MUN, case number WZ-16-03-HANCE Hance Ranch. Issue: the applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from residential 1 to mixed-use commercial TOD and mixed-use neighborhood for property located at 11818 West 52nd Avenue. The proposed rezoning area is approximately 7.3 acres. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow for a mix of land uses, density, and urban form as contemplated in the Northwest Suburbia Plan, and to simplify the review and approval for future development on the property.
Thank you, Larry. This is first reading, and therefore we can move right to a motion on that.
I move to approve Council Bill number 13-2016 as an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 11818 West 52nd Avenue from residential 1 R1 to mixed-use commercial TOD, MUC TOD, and mixed-use neighborhood MUN on first reading order it published, public hearing set for Monday, August 8th, 2016 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Woodman. Please cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Once again, another first reading. Ms. Duran. Councilmember Duran.
Council Bill 12-2016, an ordinance amending Article 2 and 6 of Chapter 5 of the International Code of Laws concerning residential fire sprinkler requirements. Issue: clarification of fire sprinkler requirements in 1 and 2 family residents.
Thank you. I think we can go right to the motion.
I move to approve Council Bill 12-2016, an ordinance amending Articles 2 and 6 of Chapter 5 of the Code of Laws concerning residential fire sprinkler requirements on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for July 25th, 2016 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect immediately.
May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hoppy. And please cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Now we move to item number 3. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
This is a motion approving the revised council rules of order and procedure dated July 11th, 2016. This is a motion. The issue: consideration of amendments to council rules of order and procedure. Attached is a revision of the council rules of order and procedure resulting from the April 11th and June 27th study sessions, at which numerous sections of the rules were discussed and recommended for change. The city attorney has incorporated all these changes into the attached revised council rules of order and procedure. The major categories and issues include edits of language. Rule 4.B.2 is changed to have all public comment at the beginning of the regular meeting. When a study session is placed at the end of a regular meeting, this would change the current practice. Rule 4.E is reworked to clarify the requirements for meeting notices and when notice must be given. Rule 4.H is amended to delete the never enforced time limit on members of council speaking on agenda items.
Thank you. Mr. Dahl, did you want to make any comments?
If I could, just a couple of things, and it won't surprise you that there's maybe 2 clarifications I'd like to make. I know council will appreciate these rules. You know, they're complex, they kind of interrelate, and you do the revisions, and then you go away for a couple of weeks and you look at them again, and some things appear that weren't obvious when you were deep into it. The only place I'd like to maybe suggest some changes, I think the Councilmember Fitzgerald actually described what in the main the changes are, is around the citizens' rights section, and that's on really the first page. It's numbered page 3, but it's really the first page of the red line, I think. You'll notice that citizens' rights, Roman numeral 2A1, it's the 3 minutes per person rule. That's really said twice, isn't it? When you look at that, it's redundant. And I think the second way it's said is probably better. A person may speak only once per meeting for a maximum of 3 minutes. And what I would suggest is that redundancy be eliminated. The second thing I think I'd suggest is in rule, looks like number 4, persons desiring to speak on, instead of an agenda item, I would like to say a regular or special meeting agenda item, because this is the no time limit kind of speech. And because the citizens' comment speech has gotten a lot longer, I thought it's important to keep that distinction between the 3-minute comments and the no limit comments on regular agenda items. And so I'd like to add, where it says an agenda item, just add a regular or a special meeting agenda item. That would make that clear. As well, I think it would be helpful to change the term citizens' comments later in that paragraph to public comment. It's the same thing, but now you have a term of art, citizens' comments, the kind of comments you hear at the beginning of the meeting on non-agenda items for the regular meeting and on agenda items for the study session. And then once you've done that, you're into public comments on regular agenda items, which really fall under a different rule. And I think it helps to just keep track of that. The only other thing that I think might be helpful, rule number 7, allowing people to donate time. You only need to donate time if you're under a 3-minute limit, right? You don't donate time when it's a public comment in the middle of a meeting. So I think that ought to get moved up to be rule number 3. So all of that stuff about 3-minute comments is in one place. There are 2 other places in the rules as amended that underscore and make clear that all of the citizens' comments now take place at the beginning of the meeting, as was done tonight. That's in the order of the agenda, and I think one other place. So really, I'm not suggesting anything substantive, but what I'm trying to do is just make a little more clear the delineation between the 3-minute kind of comments at the beginning and public comment on any other agenda item that's actually regularly scheduled that you're used to seeing.
Mr. Dahl, you and I talked about adding the word business to section 2.4 under the same grouping of A, citizens' rights. The word business before agenda item, we're almost to the end of that paragraph. So that it was really clear that this was during the business agenda comments, that there was not a time limit.
The sentence that says there shall be no time limit, that one?
Right, there shall be no time limit applied to citizens, to public, however you want to do that.
Public comment on any
Any
scheduled.
scheduled, and the word business would be helpful to delineate it from study session.
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Further questions?
So during regular business meetings, there's a 3-minute limit, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so
This is
On
on non-agenda items. If you have an item that's number 3 on the list,
but on
there's
the
no limit
agenda
on it.
items, there's no limit
That's right.
in a regular business meeting.
That's right.
Regular business.
Or in a study session,
Nope, it's just a regular business meeting.
regular business meeting,
Yeah.
okay.
Study
Because then in a
sessions.
study session, it's still a 3-minute maximum.
Right.
Okay, so I guess my question is, the way number 1 reads, and when I was reading it this weekend, it's citizens' comments, non-agenda items at a regular or special meeting, 1 per meeting for a maximum of 3 minutes. A person may only speak once per meeting. So, so the way I read that, for a maximum of 3 minutes, the way I read that is that you cannot sign up for citizens' right to speak on non-agenda items and then sign up for an agenda item and also sign up for an agenda item on a special study session, which I think that we should be able to do that. I mean, it says only once per meeting, and so that's,
Well, that's only once per meeting for that category. There's another category, number 4,
okay.
which is the, all comers, no matter how long you want to take on a regular agenda item. So those rights are distinct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Do
that
we
that
need
was
that
kind of
in
clear.
there for that for each category?
Sorry?
I wondered if we needed something like that for each category, because I find it confusing as well.
I have to say, I think, remembering that you'll be applying these rules, and at some point that you have to say, here's what the rules are, now we're applying them, and as a matter of practice, you'll start interpreting and applying them the way they're intended. I think at some point you have to sort of stop the the drafting. We might not yet be done. I know Councilmember Matthews had a question, Mayor.
Mr. Matthews.
I have a question about item 4A3. Study sessions are held the first and third Monday of each month at 6:30 p.m. It has been changed now to add, unless otherwise provided by the Mayor Pro Tem. I do not remember that we just assigned that duty to the Mayor Pro Tem only.
That was a specific discussion I know held at the study session. I will say that I made that suggestion, but that it was in the study session, and that led to these notes. Because we were trying to figure out how to, you know, how to decide when, or, you know, how to actually have the rules reflect when special study sessions were to take place.
But this is for all study sessions.
Well, they're always on the first and third Monday at 6:30 unless otherwise provided by the Mayor Pro Tem. The discussion...
You can change the first and third Monday the way I read this.
At 6:30 p.m.
I'm saying is he could cancel one of the first and third meetings if he wanted to.
No, that wasn't the intention. We can certainly say at 6:30 p.m. unless a different starting time is provided by the Mayor Pro Tem.
What I'm saying is, the way I read this, he could cancel our third Monday of the month study session by himself.
Okay, and I guess what I'm trying to say then is, I know the intention was of the change was to deal with the time, not a cancellation. So hearing what you've said, what I would suggest would be, unless a different time is provided by the Mayor Pro Tem, limiting then the Mayor Pro Tem's discretion to saying when the time of the meeting is.
I don't think he's talking about the time. He's talking about the way.
Yeah, he's talking about canceling it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm saying that wasn't the intention.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
believe.
the way it reads by my thinking.
I hear that, and what I'm trying to say is if you restrict the otherwise provided by the Mayor Pro Tem discretion, which is what you're concerned with, to the starting time of 6:30 or some other time. In other words, there's some discretion be given to the Mayor Pro Tem, to which you've objected, or you've said you don't want the Mayor Pro Tem canceling the meetings. At the same time, what we have to figure out is, the reason this change was made was so that when a study session, for example, took place tonight, and it won't be starting at 6:30 on the first or third Monday. It'll be starting at 8:30 on the second or fourth. And somebody's got to figure out whether or not the study session will take place tonight or not. And I'm open to however you want to articulate that, but we do have study sessions. We're going to have one tonight. And the rules need to reflect that you can do that, and someone's got to decide. So it's really up to council who you want to make that decision. But otherwise, the rules say that you can only have study sessions 6:30 on first and third Mondays. Tonight's not one of those times.
I think what Larry is saying, which I agree with, it sounds like with this that the Mayor Pro Tem can cancel the first or third Monday.
You could cancel all study sessions for the month the way this reads.
And I hear that, and I've said several times I do. So tell me what you want it to say to just restrict the Mayor Pro Tem's discretion to the starting time and date, perhaps, of a study session. I'm happy to write it down.
Well, I would like to see those two dates stay by themselves as separate issues, and then have an item 4 there. And I thought that's what we were headed for, is that to address special, I hate to use the word special study sessions, but
You could just say the Mayor Pro Tem has authority to add a study session to the second and fourth meetings.
Yeah, if there's something of that nature.
Does that clarify it? At the end
As
of a
needed,
regular
when
business.
needed.
Yeah, when needed.
That's all I'm asking.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to go back to what Janice said. I'm talking about citizens' rights A1. I think that's one. I think that is confusing, and I don't see any harm in just adding some, like per category, so that it makes it clear that you you have 3 minutes at each category. So there's no harm, as far as I can see, in doing that.
There's no harm, although I would draw your attention to two other places that I think address that pretty well. The first one is on page 10. It'd be the order of business. See that list? That's Roman numeral 5, order of business. And you'll notice what's been added there if you're looking at the red line. The order of business is call to order, pledge of allegiance, roll call, approval of minutes, proclamation ceremonies, citizens' right to speak, non-agenda items, regular or special meeting, then a new item, citizens' right to speak, agenda items, regular or special study session.
I acknowledge that it's listed in other places. I'm just saying this would clarify, and it's just the addition of 2 words.
Okay, tell me where then in 2A1?
Page 3, end of item 1.
Yeah, my fingers can only work so fast to get this computer back to. I just see it at the end of that sentence. I think that's what you just said.
Just say.
It would read, a person may speak only once per meeting for a maximum of 3 minutes per category.
Sure.
Then item 2 is one of the next categories.
Yeah, the item 1 is a category, item 2 is a category.
And it says it in item 2 that you have 3 minutes also in that category. Once.
Maybe you say that at the end of what is now number 7. Because we're going to move 7 up. So you'll have the regular meeting category, the study session category, and then the donation of time. How's that? Put it there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify. So, but if...
Once per category, sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it could be a freestanding rule, and then, or, we just put it in the list, and so then it doesn't have to hang on to the end of anything. It can just be its own thing.
Are we good?
Where is number 7 being moved?
I think that ought to move up to be number 3. That way, number 7 is all about the 3-minute rule.
Correct, okay.
And right now it's kind of lost at the very end, and really the first 2 are all about the 3-minute rules. So I'd like all the 3-minute rule stuff at the beginning.
Okay, so up to number 3.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Shall I summarize the amendments so that when you're ready to make the motion, you'll have some confidence that what you've told me actually got written down?
That would be very helpful.
Okay. Rule number 2A1 will be shortened by eliminating the redundancy once per meeting for a maximum of 3 minutes. Rule 2A2 stays the same. I would suggest a new rule 2A3, which says that citizens may speak under citizens' comments once per category. Present Rule 7 will move up to follow that new Rule 3, so now we have a Rule 4, but it will follow that new Rule 3. Present Rule 4 will be amended to read, persons desiring to speak on a regular or special meeting agenda item, etc. In the second sentence, it will be amended to read, there shall be no time limit applied to public comment on any scheduled business agenda item, unless deemed appropriate by the chair. Rule Roman numeral 4A3 is amended to end after the time 6:30 p.m. with a new Rule 4A4 to read, the Mayor Pro Tem may add a study session at any time or date when needed. That'll be a time or date. Kind of keep it general. Is that all right? Those would be the changes. The motion that you have in the packet works if you fill in the blank with the following amendments as described by the city attorney.
Yeah, thank you. Is motion in order?
Go for it.
Yeah, I wrote all those things down so I can have. I move to approve revised council rules of order and procedure dated July 11, 2016 with the changes as elucidated by the city attorney.
Second. Second.
George, did you?
No.
Okay.
Who?
Councilmember Duran.
Duran.
Any further discussion? We did it all backwards, but we did it. Please cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, speeding along, item number 4. Mr. Pond.
Thank you. Happy to present item number 4, a motion to award contract to KECI Colorado Incorporated, Sedalia, Colorado, in the amount of $207,500 for Clear Creek Trail Shelter Project, and to approve a contingency amount of $10,375 for a total of $217,875. At issue, Clear Creek Trail Shelter Project will provide 7 engineered 12 by 12 foot shelters to be located in specific sites along Clear Creek Trail. This project will provide users ADA compliant access from the trail to the shelter, as well as 7 ADA compliant picnic tables under the shelters. These shelters will replace wooden structures that have exceeded their life expectancy. The addition of these shelters in the green belt along the trail corridor will enhance the visitor experience and provide additional rest stop amenity.
I see. Department Head Manwaring is here. Do we have any questions of staff? No? You sure? Please go ahead with the motion.
I move to award contract to KECI Colorado Incorporated, Sedalia, Colorado, in the amount of $207,500 for the Clear Creek Trail Shelter Project, and approve a contingency amount of $10,375 for a total amount of $217,875.
Second. Seconded by Councilmember Wooden. No further discussion, then please go ahead and cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, and once again, Mr. Pond on item number 5.
Thank you. I'm happy to introduce resolution number 26-2016, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District for flood hazard area delineation for Clear Creek. I would read at issue, but is there a staff report?
Do we have a?
We do have staff here. If you want to read the issue, we probably won't have a staff report. Otherwise, we can have a staff report.
Let's have a staff report.
Okay. Mr. Westberg? We did have a PowerPoint, but I said no PowerPoint.
That's okay.
Because Mr. Pond would read the issue statement.
Yeah.
So we're putting him on the spot this evening.
No, this is great. We're gonna get the issue without a PowerPoint.
So this will be the shortest PowerPoint I've ever done because there is none. So it's really just a continuation of the work that's being done now with the CLOMR, the conditional letter of map revision that's being done. That was submitted to FEMA a couple of months ago. We expect comments back from them at the end of this month. Once that CLOMR is approved, then we immediately charge forward with the FAD, which is the flood hazard area delineation, which is the first step in remapping our floodplains to reflect that lower flow. And the flow that we've got right now in the CLOMR is about 31% lower than what is in the flood study that we currently have and that we're regulating to. So we think this is a really good thing for our community. We hope to get a host of people out of the floodplain with this project, and this is just sort of the first step in doing that.
It would be very beneficial insurance-wise, wouldn't it? Okay, do we have any questions of staff? No?
That was excellent, Mark. Thank you.
Yes.
Please go forward with the motion.
Thank you. I move to approve resolution number 26-2016, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Urban Drainage Flood Control District for flood hazard delineation for Clear Creek.
If there's no questions or discussion, please cast your votes.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss the second?
I second.
Who seconded?
Me, before we
Ms.
push our buttons.
Councilmember Hoppy. Please go ahead and cast your votes.
Oops.
Motion carries 7-0.
That ends our formal business meeting. Are there any city managers' matters?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick announcement. Some good news, which is always good. The city applied for a grant a couple months ago with the Regional Air Quality
Commission, and we applied for a grant to help us purchase a new street sweeper. We do have one street sweeper we purchased a couple years ago, I think, but as you know, they're very expensive, in a couple $100,000 range, but we did receive a grant. It's for $75,000, so towards a new street sweeper. So we'll either bring that forward through the budget process or separately, depending on when we get the grant specifications and when the money has to be spent. So we're desperately in need of a second street sweeper, and this will help offset that. So thanks, Scott, for applying for the grant.
That's great news. City Attorney matters.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, elected official matters, and I want to start with the City Clerk.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Ms. Wooden, I'll start on your end tonight.
Two things. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the AT presentation tonight, and to acknowledge that the majority of those, actually all of those people, are volunteers. So everything they've done is volunteer hours, and that is a huge, huge commitment on the part of those people. The small amount of funding that they have received from the city has gone to more of their organizational costs, but the work of the people to come together and fix the bikes and to do all the other projects that they do is all volunteer hours, and they are really to be acknowledged and commended, and I really appreciate the work that they've done to work on bike and pedestrian access for our community. The second thing I wanted to mention is that it had been mentioned before that we had several changes in our staffing for the code enforcement personnel in the police department, and this has affected the TLC program somewhat. We are going to go ahead with the dumpster days, and I had people in District 4 ask me what dates the dumpster days were going to happen. In the Fruitdale area, it's happening on September 17th, and in the Applewood area on October 1. And the exact times and places will be announced later. But we are going ahead with the TLC dumpster days, and those are the dates, and we will get the dates and times out later. And thank you to the police department for going ahead with the TLC program dumpsters, because it's really a help to our community, to neighborhoods, to have those dumpsters come and take away unwanted junk. And really appreciate the police department rearranging the schedules and doing some overtime to help make that project happen.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Thank you. I'm kind of dovetailing this in the middle here. It may have been appropriate too after all the public comments, but I was kind of going through the news and saw that I think we're all aware of the Brexit issue, Britain leaving the EU. And a couple days ago, I'd heard a comment by Britain's Theresa May, who's apparently going to become the new PM there. If I can just read this so I stay organized. May had campaigned for Britain to remain in the EU, but has vowed to uphold the voters' will to leave. She has presented herself as a unifying candidate who can bring together the two camps within the Conservative Party. And I quote, and we quote, "The campaign was fought, the vote was held, turnout was high, and the public gave their verdict," May said last week. "There must be no attempts to remain inside the EU, no attempts to rejoin it through the back door, and no second referendum," she said. And I think that's one of the most intelligent things I've heard out of British politics since Margaret Thatcher, is that the voters voted and they're going to allow the majority to rule. And I hope all politicians around the world heard that statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Pond.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Urban.
Would just like to extend my thanks to the Wheat Ridge Police Department for everything that they do, and in light of recent events, just want to say thanks for everything that they do day in and day out, and really appreciate their service, and just really appreciate everything that they do for our city, and know that they are very appreciated for everything that they do for us.
Thank you. Ms. Hoppy.
I would like to ditto Zach's thanks to the police department and put an extra thank you in there for myself. I had the pleasure of attending a retirement ceremony at Roll Call for a friend of mine who is a Denver police member, and unfortunately his exciting day of retirement ended the day after what happened in Dallas. But it was I was very honored to be a part of that ceremony and to be in that roll call. And what really struck me was how everyone in that room when we see them on the streets, we see them as police officers, but in that room, they're parents, their moms and dads and brothers and sisters, and they're going out and putting on their riot gear to go and protect people's rights to have a protest. And so I just would like to say thank you to all of our officers and all of our first responders. Second off, I would like to also just reiterate that young Evan and Ian had said about the Jefferson County 4-H livestock auction. It's on Sunday, August 14th, 2016 at 1 o'clock, but the whole event starts that day at 11 a.m. at the Jefferson County Fairgrounds Event Center in Golden.
Ms. Duran.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you to everyone that volunteered and worked for the Wheat Ridge Garden Tour. It was really successful Saturday. I want to also thank Joyce Manwaring and her staff for helping me at the Richard Hart Estate to get up the tent and tables, and they were there on a timely fashion, and it was just a great day. It was great to see community together and everybody volunteering and working so hard, so thank you.
Great. Now, I'm going to adjourn this to, we'll close this meeting, and then we're going to have a study session. Do we need a break beforehand?
Madam Mayor, yeah, can we take a break so that I can change systems?
Whatever. Change whatever you have to change. Yes, absolutely. Let's take a brief break. So I'm going to close this meeting. Janelle, are you ready?
Yeah, let me turn it on.
Please, let's start the study session. We have 2 items, and they're rather meaty. So they're going to take some time, so let's get into it. And starting with 38th Avenue Streetscapes project, and it looks like Mark is going to give us a little presentation.
Yes, so we're here to talk about the 38th Avenue Streetscape consensus that came out of the study session from June 6th. So there were several things that came out of that study session. We're just going to run through the bullet list real quick, just to remind everybody what those were. And we won't necessarily do them in order. I sort of have them grouped by category as we go through this. So repave and restripe Wadsworth to Sheridan. Redevelop the green was number 2. Number 7 was consolidate the curb cuts from Wadsworth to Harlan. And then 3, 5, and 6 dealt with Upham to Pierce, and it was to retrofit amenity zones less than 250 feet, improve sidewalks and intersections, add lighting, furniture, and art. Number 4 was add amenity zones to the flow line at Upham to High Court. Number 8 from Pierce to Harlan was to add lighting, furniture, and planters. And then number 9 was a 0.25% sales tax for 3 years. So we're just going to run through these relatively quickly, and again, sort of grouped by the street they go to, not necessarily the order they were done in. Okay. The first 2 are in order, but the rest of them won't be.
Mark,
yes.
real quick, I'm sorry, just real quickly for City Council, for some of those who maybe didn't check your email late, we apologize. The streetscape plan that was included in your packet was scanned in, so it was unable to enlarge on your computer. So we sent an email out this afternoon with the raw PDF file. So if you got that email, you should be able to pull it up, and Mark will have it on the screen tonight too. So,
And I'd like to give a shout out to Karen for doing that, because
thanks for
I
calling.
know I called late,
Yep.
but she hustled and got that out. Thank you.
Yes, and we're working on making sure that the exhibits and the packets are going to be the better quality in the future, so we're working through the issues on that. So repave and restripe from Wadsworth to Sheridan. The street is due for an overlay soon. We don't, it's sort of at that point. We could do it this year, we could do it next year, we could do it in a couple of years. It's not overdue, but it is due soon. So we think timing-wise, that works out fairly well. We'll just do it as a part of our normal program. And then at that point, whenever we overlay, of course, we put new striping in for the entire corridor. So the road itself is going to look brand new with brand new striping and stuff when we're done with this process. We think that dresses things up quite a bit just doing that. Wadsworth to Upham would be done with 5 lanes, Upham to Depew with 3 lanes, and then Depew to Sheridan with 5 lanes. That's the same configuration it is today, except for Upham to High Court. And from Upham to High Court, we would remove the bike lanes and add parking on the north side, is what's been proposed. So this is the plan that was fuzzy in the packet, and we can certainly pull this up and zoom in as we go along here. And we're going to zoom in as we talk through this. But this is the plan. I apologize for the street names. I'm old and I struggle sometimes with software and didn't get the street names to work out very nice. High Court in particular looks weird, but this is the plan. We're going to zoom into the various pieces of it to show what's happening. So first we'll talk about the green, and then we're going to talk about the section from Upham to Harlan, sort of the stuff that's common between that entire section. And then we'll talk about, just zoom right in on Upham to High Court, and then we'll talk about High Court to Pierce, and then from Pierce to Harlan. So the green, redevelop it with an amphitheater and gathering space. We've talked about this a few times. Jeffco Public Schools owns that property. We currently have a memorandum of understanding to utilize the property in the way that we do. We met with Jeffco Stash a week or so ago and talked about what our proposal was, the ideas we had and stuff, and they used the word, we think mutually beneficial improvements would be a good thing to do with the city. So we thought that was a nice word to use, mutually beneficial. Something we can use as a city, something they can use as a school district. There is an example of something they did like this up at Wolf Park in Arvada. It's up at 58th, and I've got a picture of that I've got just saved at the end of the presentation. I wasn't going to necessarily show it. One of the unique things that they brought up that they did on that site, because the city put so much money into redeveloping that as a park, is the city has first right of refusal. If Jeffco ever decides to dispose of the school property, the city has the first right to buy the part that is the park. So they said that they thought that was a good idea for what we're proposing here, and we do too. If we were going to spend some money there, it would be nice to know that we could keep it. This is the exhibit that was done, the concept design that was done as a part of the 2014 process. We do know that we have to change this because the area that's labeled storage and stage area there at the upper left is now a playground. So we asked our current consultant who's helping us on this project, and they have come up with this little design. It's very similar to that, but it does have some changes to it. And there is a landscape buffer still, if you saw the little yellow arrow pop up there. At the southern end, that is sort of buffering this area from 38th Avenue. And then at the bottom right corner, there is a entry plaza area, which is quite a bit bigger than what was proposed in the 2014 plan. And there's a shade structure, there's maybe an entry feature and a public art. There are some people that want to put a water feature at this location of some sort. I won't name any names, Patrick. This area would be regraded. It's relatively steep right now to try to do something on beyond what they do with school stuff, which is sort of kids play there. And then these retaining walls would be added to flatten that, to take care of that flattening out, if you will. And those would also double as seating for the amphitheater area. So they'd be 18 inches tall, 16 inches tall, so people could sit down comfortably and watch something at the stage. And then the sidewalks on either side and in the middle be widened to 10 feet to allow really good pedestrian access on those paved areas and that sort of thing. So that's just, it's pretty much the same concept. It's just been adjusted a little bit to account for that playground being there. From Upham to Harlan, the big thing that's the constant for that entire area is consolidating curb cuts. We've talked about this several times in the past. We did a study back in 2014 from Upham to Marshall. The existing curb cuts, there's 37 existing curb cuts there, driveways, if you will. We call them curb cuts because they cut our beautiful curb up. That total over 1,600 feet in length. Almost 34% of the actual curb length along the street is driveways, essentially. We'd done a study back at that time, and we looked like we could consolidate those down to about 28 curb cuts and basically have shared driveways between some properties and not some others, and also to shorten the very long curb cuts to something that meets our code. What we found was that at that time was that we'd have about 700 feet of driveways, which would drop that percentage down to about 15%, which is a more normal percentage of what you would expect to find is about 15% of your frontage. You think about your houses, your lots maybe, my lot's 75 feet wide, my curb cut's about 10 feet wide, and because I just have a single car garage, and so that's sort of what you typically find on the street. It's more like 15%. I very quickly looked at Marshall to Harlan as we were preparing this, and what's existing there today is 29 curb cuts with about 900 feet, and about 29% of that frontage is curb cuts. We've not looked at what we could propose there yet. We do have some proposal in the plan that shows where curb cuts could be, but we've not done all the math to total that up. But I would expect that to drop down considerably from the 29%. We do have some long curb cuts on that east side of this section from Marshall to Harlan, and also some places we think we can combine curb cuts and do some shared access. The other thing that's pretty common for the whole thing would be the street furnishings. And in the 2014 plan, we had proposed, as a result of that process, to do something different than we had in the rest of the town. What we're proposing with this process is just to use the same trash cans, benches, and pedestrian lights that we're using all over town right now. Those pedestrian lights are the LED lights that we've got at 44th and Vance. We've got at 32nd and Youngfield. We've just installed those pedestrian lights along Kipling. I think they look really sharp and nice, and they look good through there. And we just have another sort of random picture of some planter pots if we end up doing some pots along the side of the street, up on the sidewalk areas and that kind of thing. So again, looking at our entire corridor, if we drill down to just what's between Upham and High Court, this is the area that looks most like a main street today and would continue to get the most special treatment for a really good reason. We have this really unique situation there where when they widened the road back in the day, they had the parallel parking that's the concrete area that's shown there, and I have a very faded arrow showing up. Sorry, it came in way too faded. That actually slopes towards the street. So the flow line of the street is actually out, not at the curb line where the parking is. It's actually out here at the edge of the asphalt, basically. And so what we can do is we could fill this area in without triggering any kind of street width because we're not doing anything within the flow line of the street. And we've talked to Mr. Dahl about this, and he agrees with our assessment of that. And so what that can look like for this stretch, because of what we can do there, is this is the section view of what we could do from Upham to High Court. We've got in the road, we've got 3 lanes of traffic like we have today. We have on the north side of the street, on-street parking, which we didn't have. We have bike lane there today. And then on the south street of the street, we also have on-street parking. and this retrofit island, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a little bit. Our city's standard for a parallel parking space is 8 feet wide, but since we're not moving the curbs, we've got a few extra feet to play with. And rather than widening the travel lanes, which would encourage people to drive faster, we've chosen to put that extra footage, that width, into the parking aisle. And what that does for us is it gives people a place to open doors without those doors being out in traffic. So we think that's a real benefit for us to have that extra out in there. And we've got more on the north side than the south side because it makes the road line up better through there. So we end up not doing quite so much of this as we drive down 38th Avenue. So what we have on the side then, where it's labeled new sidewalk, we have an amenity zone there today, and then we have the area that we can fill in, and so we sort of think of that as new sidewalk and amenity zone. What we'd end up with is over 20 feet from the face of that building out to where that flow line is, and that would give us room to put in all kinds of things. So this is where the approximate location of the existing trees are, sort of towards the back of that existing amenity zone. We could add some new trees out in the retrofit islands and also just within that 20-foot area that we have there. And this is, the trees we have there today have been there a while. What we hear from our forestry folks is that they're doing well, but they're getting towards the end of their life. They're going to need to start trimming more and doing things. So rather than waiting for those to sort of go bad on us in a few years, our thought is to go ahead and plant some new trees and get those growing. And then when those inevitably die or get to the point that they need more maintenance than we can handle, then we've got a new tree there to replace it. And we can always plant a new tree back where this tree was, but this way we keep in this area, we can keep a constant rhythm of trees going as we continue down through the decades, if you will. The other thing it allows us to do in that 20-foot is we could actually put dining next to the building. So, at Right Coast Pizza, we have the pop-up cafe. It's separated from the building. It complicates liquor license things. If you have a drink inside, you can't carry the drink outside because you're going into the public space. The waitstaff, you can go out there, and the waitstaff can carry your drink for you, but with having it attached to the building, then it's all interchangeable. They can walk outside with their drink, they can walk back inside with their drink. So having the dining area up against the building works a lot better for a lot of reasons. In plan view, it looks like this, and so just want to point out a couple of things in the plan view. And this is zoomed in on the drawing that you can't see in your packet, so we'll continue to do that tonight. The blue arrow there at the bottom left is where a pedestrian light is, and so our proposal would be to take out all the old Acorn-style lights, which Excel no longer supplies, and replace those with LED lights. We'd have to work with Excel on how all that works out and stuff, but we can certainly do that. These sort of faded circles represent approximate locations where the existing trees are, and you can see in the aerial on the north side, we don't have all the trees located, but we have most of the ones that are important located. And then this little fuzzy thing was where the new trees could be. So you can see we've got those trees positioned where they complement the existing trees. And as the new trees grow and the old trees fade, we can sort of get those replaced that way. And then also a few new trees on the north side also. And then this would be one of those little retrofit islands that we were talking about. And again, we're going to talk about those a little bit more in just a minute. This, if you look at the left side there, that's one of the new ADA ramps. One of the consensus items was to get all of our stuff up to code, if you will. So this would be a new handicap ramp that meets the current code. And then this is the enhanced crosswalks where we have the patterned colored concrete. Now, one of the things we also need to do in order to help the visually impaired is go ahead and put those 2-foot white stripes on either side of that, and it also helps to really delineate that area with those crosswalks. And at the right, the little arrow that just popped up on the right side is where the 2 bus stops are. We have bus stops right across from each other there, and so we have those accommodated for by not having the parking at those locations. And then the last thing to talk about is the outdoor seating enlargement, and so the next exhibit that we have is a zoom in on, and we picked Right Coast Pizza just because they already have the pop-up cafe, and presumably if we do this, they'd like to move that up against their building. So,
Mark, I'm sorry, when we're on this point, there was a comment earlier from a gentleman, the hair place. Is that in the same block? Maybe you can talk about
It is in that same block at Bizarre Hair Fashions, which is, I'm assuming that's next to Friends Cafe. Is that correct? Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So I don't know what plan they saw.
This plan doesn't have it though, right?
This plan doesn't have it. No,
okay.
This plan doesn't show that. We show up an asterisk, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit about what might could go there. But certainly we have in our conversations in 2014 and recently with Recyclery and the folks that are in the building next door, as we're trying to preserve all existing parking. We're actually not proposing any changes to that parking at all with the design that's moving forward. So hopefully that takes care of that situation. So this is that width that's represented. Now, Right Coast building is back just a little bit farther, from the street, so they would actually have more than 20 feet there at that location. It's just a few feet back farther, just like Mr. Michelli's building has some places that are set right out there at the 20 foot, and then some are set farther back. So there'd be a lot of opportunities for little outdoor dining areas and things like that. So this is where approximate location of the existing tree. This is where the new tree would be in a tree grate. And then this is where that little outdoor dining area could be. And it could actually be bigger than this. We just would have to work through all of that as we go through the process on this. We also have room, because the area is so wide, to add a little bench there. And you can tell the detail in the drawing. We actually have a bun on this little lady that's sitting on the back of her head. So we think our detail is pretty good. We felt bad that it came through fuzzy to you. And then again, the pedestrian lighting that's there today, we would replace that with the new light fixtures. The new curb ramps on the right side there, just showing where those would be, and then the new enhanced crosswalks, just sort of a zoom in of what that would look like also. And we would have the bricks on the one going a diagonal, oriented in the direction of the thing. We can do that. That just a soft. No, they couldn't be raised. On 30th, they for sure couldn't be raised, because we don't do raised crosswalks where we have fire stuff going on. And also on the side streets, we weren't proposing to raise those necessarily, just because these are, we typically don't put those raised crosswalks right at an intersection with a major corridor. So it would cause lots of bouncing as you're coming around the corner and things. But they would definitely be enhanced over what they are today. The next section is from High Court to Pierce. This is what it looks like in cross-section. It's a little thinner than what was from Upham to High Court. Again, we have the 3 lanes of traffic. We have the bike lanes on either side, and then the parking on the south side with that little retrofit island again. And we're going to talk about that more with this part of the presentation. Again, this is exactly what we have out there today. We have 6-foot bike lanes on both sides. We have the travel lanes as shown, and we have the somewhat wider parking space on that south side. This is a new tree that we proposed just where those retrofit islands are, which isn't very often, as you'll see in the plan view. So I've gone ahead and zoomed back out to show everything from Upham to Pierce, even though we're mostly talking about High Court to Pierce, because we're going to go ahead and talk about where those retrofit islands would be that are less than that 250-foot aggregate. So the first one is here at the very beginning of the corridor. We think it's important to have this one because it helps to show that we're going from 5 lanes to 3 lanes. It also gives us an opportunity at this location to maybe put a little entry feature in, a little something there. At the next location, which is here at the crosswalk at Upham Street, which is where we have the rectangular flashing beacon there that's very bright if you go by at nighttime and people push the button. And the reason for those retrofit islands at this point is to shorten that crossing distance to make so the pedestrians are going just across as short a space as possible. The next one is just on either side. Next 2 are on either side of Teller Street. Again, to sort of bookend, if you will, that parallel parking that's on that side of the street. And then the last pair that is there is, again, at the end of that, the east end of that parking, in order to, again, bookend that parking, and also keep the parking from bleeding into those bus stop areas. Because if you don't put something there, people will tend to park at the end of the last car, and next thing you know, you don't have a place for the bus to pull into. And then at this location, we'd love to have those retrofit islands on both sides, but because of that bus stop on the south side and the way they pull out and things, we just can't fit that in. But we do have one on the north side, again, to shorten that parking, that travel distance for the pedestrians. And then as we head east on 38th, east of High Court, then we've got one there just by Dave's Automotive is the next location that we thought was logical because it's near, again, some parking spaces. Just on the other side of that, if you look at the lower left of your monitor, there is another one there, again, at the end of some parking spaces, just west of where Compass is. And then the next one is basically in front of Clancy's, sort of, again, ending some parking. And then we have one more in front of just east of Clancy's. And then we run out of linear footage. And also east of here is shown with the big green circles. We have that row of trees in front of the dialysis center that does a pretty good job of providing some streetscape at that location. And then east of that, we don't have anything because of the right turn lane to get onto Pierce Street. And then at the north end, this is, if you look at the upper right of your drawing, there's a little green asterisk that is shown there. And we have those sort of scattered throughout the corridor on the north side. We can put the retrofit islands on the south side because that's where the on-street parking is. So we can just put them where that parking lane. The north side we can't put one in because the bikes would run into it. And so what we've identified is some locations where either we have an easement or we think we could pursue an easement with a property owner to look at adding either a potential landscape feature, maybe some public art or something along those lines at those locations. And then The last thing I want to point out in the lower left of the drawing there is a new pedestrian light location. I picked that one because it's really easy to see. It happens to be in front of Ms. Hoppe's business. If we're able to consolidate some driveways, then we get some more ped lights in the scheme of things. And we're looking for a rhythm, or I think our plan calls for 65-foot spacing on pedestrian lights. And we have some driveways that are 140 foot long, and so you can't do any rhythm there unless you consolidate driveways. So to get that vertical rhythm of the ped lights, the driveway consolidations become really important. Apparently I have one more arrow, which is where, again, just showing where the pedestrian, the enhanced crosswalks would be with the color pattern concrete and the white stripes, and then the new ADA ramps. From Pierce to Harlan, which is the last section to the east, where we have the least amount of right-of-way and the least amount of space, we can pretty much do this. We can add ped lights, we can swap out ped lights and maybe add ped lights if we consolidate some driveways. This ped light arrangement with the banners and the baskets on the sides is what would be proposed throughout the corridor. We just decided to show it in this slide, mostly because it's really visible in this slide because there's not much else here. So again, we have the 3 lanes of travel. We have the on-street parking on the south side as it is today. And then we have the new ped lights that we're proposing along this to replace out the old ones and possibly add some. And there's our little hanging basket there. And we do recognize that the hanging baskets will be a maintenance thing that'll have to be dealt with. And we've talked with our Parks Department about that, and they've acknowledged that it'll be a maintenance thing that they'll pretty much have to deal with probably almost every day. I water my baskets every day where they are, so they're pretty though, so they're worth it. From Pierce to Harlan, do want to point out, so this is sort of those little dots that you see where the arrow flies in. Those are the ped light locations. We'll look at this a little closer and possibly try to identify a few more places where we can add ped lights to get that vertical cadence so people know they're there. Even though there's not much else happening in this section, we would try and do that. We do have one on-street crossing. If you look at your lower left where the yellow arrow is flashing, that is at the seniors' living facility, the Highlands West. This is a current location. We would propose to enhance that location. We actually have a full pedestrian signal at that location. And then on the side streets, we would again just do the enhanced crosswalks with the ADA ramps everywhere. And I don't want to minimize the importance of doing that. That's a really, really important thing to do. We're actually going through preparing an ADA transition plan for the entire city right now because of the federal requirements related to that. So the last thing we're going to talk about today that's on the consensus is the sales tax. And what's been proposed is a 0.25%. I couldn't figure out how to get a cent sign to work out. It wasn't on my keyboard anywhere. So I went with the percentage. Sales tax increase for 3 years. It's expected to generate $4.5 million. And what was proposed in the consensus was if more than $4.5 million is raised, it should go into the CIP. A conceptual cost estimate is pending. Our consultant has prepared one. I got it late Friday and have not had a chance to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. What they've got prepared right now was the bottom line. I went and checked the bottom line. It showed $4.2 million. I'm not sure that they got everything or all those kind of things, so I'll be looking at that very closely this week as we prepare for the next meeting with you all. So that's sort of where we are with things on that. And so the next step is refine the scope with you all tonight. And then by July 25th, because we've got some deadlines we're butting up against really quickly here, is we'll revise the conceptual design that we presented to you if necessary. If you guys have any changes to this at all and have a consensus on that, we can certainly revise that conceptual design. We've started preparing renderings, but we've held off finalizing those until we show you at least what the plan view looks like, and then we'll have some renderings. And we've hired a company. The renderings that were done in the 2014 plan were very sort of artsy, if you will, with sort of the white outlines and the different things. These are very realistic renderings. We've hired Express Renderings. If you look them up online, you can see some of their work. They do a really good job of doing some stuff, and we'll also finalize that and get that conceptual cost estimate prepared. The other thing we forgot to do at the end of the last meeting, because I think it was 11 o'clock and we were all tired, was we would like to have consensus from you all to hire Mueller Engineering to go ahead and determine the actual capacity of 38th Avenue. That was one of the things we presented last time in our presentation. I wasn't going to present all that again, but just to figure out what the actual capacity of our street is with the 3 lanes that we have today, just so we know what that number is compared to where the traffic is today, where the traffic might be tomorrow, and those kind of things. So we do have some deadlines, as I mentioned. The council, to meet the deadlines to do something this year, the council would need to approve an election resolution. And this is just a resolution that says we're going to have a ballot initiative lets Jeffco know that we're going to have a ballot initiative. We basically have a week before that council action form is due. Now, our proposal right now is that if you've looked at your agendas coming up, is we're proposing to come back to you again on the 25th with another study session to sort of close that loop on the things that are still outstanding, like the cost estimate and any revisions that you make tonight. We basically have to get the council action form done by Friday in order to get it down to Patrick's hands so they can start putting packets together next week. So we've got to move very quickly on where we go from tonight. By the 29th, which is Friday, we need to notify Jeffco of that Friday the 29th. We notify Jeffco the city has an action for the general election so they can plug a slot in for us. And then to actually do this, we've got to do first reading of the ballot language on August 8th, which we have 3 weeks before our council action forms due. And then we've got to do second reading on August 22nd because September 9th, the ballot language is due to Jefferson County. And those are when all of our meetings are between now and then. I suppose we could wait until the first Monday in September, but then we're all on holiday, so this is where we are today. So that's where we are with the ballot stuff. So our discussion is, do we do a 38th project this year? And if we do, what do we do and where do we do it and all those kind of things. We've got a consensus that came out of the last meeting, and we're just looking to figure out where we go from here. And Lauren will furiously take notes if you guys decide to do something different than what's been presented here. And I want to just say, I get up here and talk all the time. I can't do this without her. She's an invaluable asset to our team of folks that are working on this thing, and probably does more for the overall thing than I do. I just am the mouthpiece.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you. Okay, that was quite a bit. Larry, do you want to start?
Yeah, at a previous study session, we had talked with Mr. Dahl, and he had kind of clarified for us if you do these bubble-out curb corners, that even though they are only 15 feet wide apiece, that they effectively narrow the road and would trigger the charter language. Any clarification based on what you've seen here, Mr. Dahl?
Well, I think what, the design tries to do, as I recall the discussion from last time in the consensus, was you need to spend that 250-foot, budget that the code allows, appropriately. And I haven't done any, I haven't taken this design to any kind of measurement, but I assume that, the staff has done that.
Using Google Maps, so don't trust this as a dyed in the wool. That's the best engineering tool I have. It's around 300 feet from curb, corner bulbs out to the next one.
Yeah.
So that exceeds the 250 feet.
What, you're saying the distance between the bubbles?
Yeah. So yeah, they come out, then they go back down.
Right.
And so you had clarified for us that even though each little corner is only maybe 15 feet wide, because we've effectively narrowed the road for 300 feet, it would not meet the charter requirements.
No. You haven't reduced the street for that length. That wasn't. There are sort of two categories of activity, I think we were talking about, and it's been, 3 weeks now since that study session?
It was even earlier than that, but...
Okay. But, to the extent you're doing things at an intersection, that affects the width of the street at that intersection, but it does not affect the width of the street between that intersection and the next intersection. Because the flow line between those 2 points is still where it was. And I will tell you that I never said that if you bump out here and then you bump out here, you've effectively changed the width for the entire intervening distance. That's not how, at least, it's not how I look at it.
Okay.
The way we looked at it, just I can clarify that, the way staff put this together is it's based on the cumulative measurement of each of those bulb outs. Those bump outs should be 250 feet or less based on the consensus. That's how this was designed, at least, and that was our understanding of that would not trigger the charter restriction.
So we're going to tell the people then that we have not narrowed the street because those curbs coming out in the middle of the street haven't narrowed it.
Well, they have to the extent of their width.
Okay.
And, I have to tell you, this, you have a charter provision, then you have a code provision enacted by this council or a predecessor council that has to mean something. And so you take that code provision, you try to apply it. And I think what's been done to date is probably the right way to try to apply that code provision, which gives you sort of a budget, if you will, of street narrowings that you can undertake consistent with the charter. And that budget's 250 feet. Now, none of this has been contested or challenged in any court, and I'm not a judge, and so the last thing I'm going to do is guarantee how, a court will view it. But courts typically will give deference to the legislative body that's trying to interpret and apply its charter. And I will tell you that the code provision, because that 250 feet is not in the charter, it's in the code. That code provision is an attempt by this council or predecessor council 10 years ago to interpret and then implement that charter provision 5.20. And it's, I think, fair for a court to say that creates a budget that you can spend, but you can't overspend it. And, who's kidding who? The art, it's probably more an art than a science. Mark would disagree with that. But the art here is, figuring out how to best use that budget and not exceed it. And I think that's been the dialogue all along. But I will say that a bulb out here and a bulb out at the next corner does not mean that that you draw an imaginary line and say you've spent, not only have you spent the bulb outs, but you've spent the distance between along that imaginary line. I think that's inconsistent with the budget that the code gives.
Any other questions on that or discussion on that particular point? I don't want to miss anybody. Further questions then on the overall presentation?
Yes. I just want to go back to two comments earlier from residents. So could you go back to the picture of in front of the Fern's Cafe and the hair place?
Yes. This is probably the best I've got.
So it's up on the right here, in the right-hand corner?
Right. So the white roof building you see right where it says potential is Wheat Ridge Cyclery.
Okay.
Can I use my mouse? Oh, I can. So this is Wheat Ridge Cyclery. This is the building that is not owned by Wheat Ridge Cyclery that has Fran's Cafe and Bazaar Hair Fashions. I'm not sure what other business is in there. But that's that. And so this is their parking lot. This is their parking lot. And they have a wider sidewalk area right here today. And what was proposed in 2014, and we were proposing also, is to try to combine the driveway that goes into where the farmer's market with this, to try to do this, and with sort of the remnant space that's left after doing all that stuff, we think there's room to do something special there.
Farmers market's with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're all in the same grant.
Right.
Okay, so there's pull-in park. What's the parking right there?
So you pull in, what happens today is you pull in here and then there's diagonal parking along here.
Okay.
Is what you're able to do.
Okay, so I
And
just
you
wanted
pull
to.
out, this is an exit here, so this is the entrance, this is the exit. We're not proposing to change that at all. We may just move this entrance down so that it can combine with the one that goes back to the farmer's market. So we don't have a driveway here and another driveway 10 feet away.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. And then the other question was shared access agreements. As I read the ballot language, I understood that a shared access agreement would be between two businesses.
Yes.
And so that is the agreement between two businesses, and therefore the city doesn't have anything to do with it, although they would help facilitate the conversations between those two.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that also.
Mr. N.
Yes, I have a couple of things to say. I appreciate all the public comments from the citizens this evening. We're all dedicated to our community. We all want to do something special with 38th Avenue. I don't think either side, I don't think the 1,000 citizens that participate in Create Your 38 process, they're not getting what they want. The 7,800 that voted in 2014 obviously aren't getting what they want. So I really feel that neither side has been represented here in this plan. What I would ask, I know we got a consensus for the ballot language here. We also discussed that evening, 3 weeks ago or a month ago, that if for some reason this plan were to fail at the ballot box, there would be an alternative, kind of like a clause within the ordinance. I put one together, I'll pass it out to you, and I would like to get a consensus on this, please. There you go. I'll go ahead and read it while you're passing that out. I'd like to make a consensus to direct the city attorney to include as a second section in the ordinance referring to election, the previously discussed ballot question on 38th Avenue, the following: that in the event the ballot question fails at the election, then the following action would be taken on or before March 31st, 2017. The entirety of 38th Avenue from Wadsworth to Sheridan shall be repaved and striped to a 4-lane configuration, which includes 2 lanes of traffic in each direction with a continuous turn lane where permissible. I feel that with everything that we've gone through, all conversations, all the money that we've spent on 38th Avenue trying to get a consensus as to what to do, that we need to stop. We need to really realize that if this ballot question fails and doesn't pass, the citizens are saying they want their 4 lanes on 38th Avenue. They need to have it. We need to have something settled so if this doesn't pass, this is what's going to occur. We're not going to spend another year, 6 months, 2 years trying to anticipate and figure out what our citizens, our business owners, our stakeholders want. This is clear. So I would like to get a consensus on this, and I would appreciate your support. It's the right thing to do, and I'd like to hear from you, what your thoughts are.
Just a clarifying question, and maybe ask you to consider a couple of amendments to this. But if I'm getting you right, you want the city attorney to draft more specifically language that can be put in an ordinance form with the substantive parts of this paragraph. Would you be willing to consider looking at that ordinance in draft form before it gets combined with any ballot questions, since those are kind of now tracking somewhat separately, or can we see that alone, essentially? Okay. I would ask, and I think that we can obviously, and we look at that schedule. Can you go back to that schedule, Mark? No, you had it. Yeah, there it is. The question, I think, will be whether or not we can see that draft by July 25th. In order, it seems like there's some other things coming out of this that we're probably going to see on July 25th as well. We haven't quite got to those that direction yet, but if it's something that can be done before July 25th and it can be separated as a separate ordinance, I'd ask that question first of staff and council that could be done, and then I have one other suggestion.
Well, sure. Mechanically, what you'll do when you do when you do a notice and call of election, and if you choose to send ballot language to the county clerk and recorder for inclusion on the coordinated ballot, you'll do that by ordinance, and presently, if you move forward, the first section of that ordinance would say, here's the ballot question, and it shall hereby be certified to the county and included on the ballot. There's nothing wrong in an ordinance here in Wheat Ridge from having section 2 of that ordinance. Section 2, if you not do anything else, will just be the effective date and all that usual jazz. That's the end of ordinances. There's nothing wrong with adding a section 2 that says in the event the ballot question, which is being certified hereby by section 1, fails at the election, then in the language that was read. That's fine. We have a single subject rule for ordinances in Wheat Ridge, but it, I believe, is well within the scope of that. It's the same subject, so you can include that. So the first section of the ordinance will do its work of sending the ballot question to the county clerk and recorder, who will crank it into all their stuff, And of course, it's a Tabor question, so it'll get in the notices, the Tabor notices and whatnot. And then the second section will be operative, if it were to be adopted, would be operative just in the city, and would be directive to the city what happens if the ballot question fails.
Thank you. So that could be prepared for discussion. I believe we'd need a special study session to have that conversation.
And we actually did pencil in, as I think Mark mentioned up here, on the screen. We do have a special study session penciled in for July 25th after the regular meeting in case we need to discuss anything further about 38th Avenue.
Okay. I'll have some other comments.
Okay. Ms. Wooden.
I just have some general comments. The first one being, I believe we are the 6th city council to work on this project for many years. And here we are still discussing it, and we still don't have a finished product. So our citizens, myself included, are very disappointed that we don't have anything, we don't have a place to go to still, based on the arguing and the bickering that goes on. And our neighboring cities do have places, and many of us probably visit those cities and those city main streets. So this is the continued arguing, and never moving forward, really, it is just so disappointing. Secondly, I'd like to say that after 2A and 2B failed, a direct result of that failure was the Create 38 process. I remember that we sat here and we talked about getting another public input process directly as a result of 2B failing. And 2B did not say change back to 4 lanes. It said we will not change the street width. So the Create Your 38 process came about. Many people took their time and effort to come forward and give us their opinion. And 33 groups of tables said we wanted a 3-lane option versus 8, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly, that said 4 lanes. That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. And I have to respect the city councils before us who came up with this idea. It wasn't me, it wasn't the city council, it was I think a whole different group of people that came up with the narrowing of the road diet, and what it could bring to our city and how it could help create a main street and a place for people to gather and to slow traffic and to get people to stop in Wheat Ridge and not drive through as fast as they possibly can at 47 average miles per hour. So out of respect for the process which came about from 2B failing, the Create Your 38 process, I have to respect the people that came forward and said they wanted 3 lanes. And I have to respect the 3 lanes, and I cannot support this proposal.
Mr. Fitzgerald, I just wanted to check the other side.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm accused of having a
Right,
only goes
yeah,
one way.
me having a left-hand bias. Many things that Councilwoman Duran said I agree with. Also, what Council Lady Putin said. I think that we've had a cloud over us. We've had this cloud of poisonous gas over us, and it's affecting our ability to move forward on everything. It just is poisoning our entire process, and it's poisoning the city. And I think we have to remove the uncertainty that caused that cloud by making a decision. So I think we have to make a decision one way or another, and obviously we have a time crunch here. We have to do it right away. We've been at this for, councils have been at this for years upon years, and no decision has been made. We have been on it since I have been on council, and no decision has been made. We argue this way, we argue that way, back and forth. It's time for us to make a decision. Now, I disagree with Councilwoman Duran in one fairly substantial way. I don't want to be obsessed with 4 lanes. What this is about for me is about slowing traffic, creating bicycle tricycle, bicycle traffic, pedestrian traffic. Bikes are my speed, or trikes are my speed, right? Slowing the traffic and having a center to gather. And I think it's sort of one-dimensional to look at the number of lanes as if that in itself is the object here. It's not the object here. The object is to create this center point. So I just have to say I'm in favor of voting to move forward with this, and I don't think we've actually finished our discussion about this at all, but I'm not in favor of mandating a 4-lane option if it fails, if our project fails. That just seems to me that it will motivate the people who have been adamantly, single-mindedly concentrating on 4 lanes. So I think it assures the failure of this to put this section in. So my summary is I would like to go ahead with this and put something on the ballot. I do not want to have the 4-lane resolution on the ballot or even considered. So I will vote against considering this further.
There is no voting. This is a study session.
Consensus. Just consensus, yeah. Ms. Hoppy. Mrs. Hoppy.
Ms. Dren, with a continuous turn lane where permissible at the end of your consensus request, that means 5 lanes? Wherever that turn lane is, yes. 5 lanes where it used to be 5 lanes? Okay. First off, I'd like to say thank you so much to the staff for putting together this presentation. I think it looks really amazing, and I think that when you consider that that space just west of the school and the green space is has been purchased, and they're looking at redeveloping that, and our street design manual, our streetscape and design manual dictates that 9 feet of that property, I believe 9 feet of that property inwards, will have to be also amenity zones. So as you look at that map in the top left corner, that will also be green space and amenity zones there once that property is developed. I think that you did a very good job translating the consensus into visuals, and I appreciate that. Another thing about this plan is that this is it's a compromise, and it also has a good time limit on it of 3 years. It's got a nice price tag on it at $4.5 million, and it does meet the core values for the Create Your 38 process. 3 lanes was obvious out of that process, but along with that were green spaces, gathering places, and public art, and more walkability. And so trying to consolidate some of those long curb cuts, but then taking care of our poorly maintenance sidewalks that are already there, help with walkability. It does give us the option to be able to keep the bike lanes in there. And so while they do only just connect up to Pierce, Pierce is a main biking area between our community and Arvada and Lakewood. And so it makes a nice biking ability for people to bike into our main street. I think this is a really good plan, and I think that it's a really good step in the right direction, and we're honoring those people who did not want to move the curb and gutter by leaving the curb and gutter where they are. So I think this plan deserves our energy, I think it deserves our efforts, and I think it deserves our focus. And because I think doing anything, any sort of what if, will take away from that focus and away from that energy, regardless of what the what if is, I can't support a what if. Now, unfortunately, this what if that's been presented has 5 lanes, and as I've said in the past, I cannot support 5 lanes, 47 miles per hour near our school.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Urban?
By the city's own admission and based on their own information, the speed information as it relates to that, I don't want to call it a 5-lane design, but that 2-lane in each direction with the center turn lane around the Chase and 38th Street at present is about 35 miles an hour, which I think is a reasonable speed when we talk about level of service, and I think that that's a reasonable speed to be had along 38th Avenue, and I don't think that's unsafe, and I think it's unfair to pit a 3 and 4 lane design as one being safe and one being unsafe. That's just an unfair scare tactic, and that's what was used in the Create Your 30th process throughout, and that's what led us down this primrose path of creating this 3-lane design. And we have a situation now where we are being presented with another design that has some of the characteristics that voters voted against in previous elections. And because we've presented the previous question to voters and they've previously said no, and we want, all of us want something done on 38th, I think the voters deserve to have some action taken at the end of the election. This fail-safe option gives us that ability to, at the end of the election, have something happen so that no matter what, 30th Avenue gets something out of this. So if the voters vote in favor of a sales tax increase and they go forward with this design as presented, then more power to them, and that's that's fantastic that that's what they want. But what I don't want to have happen is for us to end back in a situation of square one, and that's what this consensus allows us to do. Is it allows us to give us an opportunity to not be back at square one. And what Councilor Duran has done is to present us with an option that says that no matter what, we come up with some kind of fail-safe plan. And we had over 7,000 voters vote in the previous election against not just a street width, but a vision, and that was debated time and again. It wasn't just a street width designation, it was a vision that was presented. There was design that was presented. It wasn't just a street width as presented, it was a specific vision, just as this is a specific vision as presented. And people will look at this vision and they will choose this vision or not. And what I want to see is that there's some kind of fail-safe option so that no matter what, we are giving people a choice. I understand that we cannot ask a question at the ballot of, can you choose one or the other? And so this gives us that ability to ask the voters, which direction do you want to go? And that gives us the ability to do that. So that would be my preference, to give the voters the opportunity by way of having this separate section in the ordinance that allows us to say to voters, should you choose to vote no on this 3-lane design, that this would go back to 4 lanes. And I think that's a smart move on our part, because we do have these funds allocated in the CIP budget for 30th Avenue already, that we would have some action taken on 38th. We put this behind us, we would still have a somewhat repaved and otherwise redone 38th. It's not going to be the design that's in front of us right here, but it's going to be something rather than nothing, and it's going to be an ability to move beyond this current issue, and we can be done with it. But if we want to continue to pretend that 2B didn't happen, and we want to pretend that that election didn't happen, and ask the question again, we're going to be back where we started, and we're going to get the same answer we got before. And I don't know how else to say this. This is just, we had this issue come up before, and I tried as best I could to tell you guys this is what was going to happen. And I tried to get the price tag of the $9.3 million in the previous question, and that was not considered, and I asked how we're going to pay for it, and that wasn't a question that was willing to be considered, and now we're at least considering how to pay for it, and I thank you for at least considering how we're paying for it. That's appreciated, and
We've moved up.
I thank you for at least listening to that part of it, and I want this part of this in here so that people at least know that they have a choice. And if people choose to go forward with this, think about it this way. If you include this 4-lane option, you have something to fight against, so that you have a way to say, choose our 3-lane option over this 4-lane option. I mean, it's a way to showcase your 3-lane option against something. It's a contrasting option versus having nothing to contrast against. So, I mean, you can sit here and pretend like this isn't going to be the exact same question as we had 2 years ago, but I don't see how we're not going down the same path we went down 2 years ago, and we're back in the same boat. But what is the harm in asking the question? The harm is in somehow by putting this in here, it's going to cause it to fail. We've had people come up to the dais who have been in favor of the 3-lane design from the start, come up here and say, just by asking the question, it's going to fail. That to me is mind-blowing in and of itself. But now, just by putting this question up here and then saying, just by giving people the option or making this fail-safe an option, it somehow makes it fail. That to me is by being prudent and being somehow concerned about wanting to get some kind of action taken and seeing something done on 38th, that somehow that's going to cause it to be to fail. I don't see how that causes it to fail. It just makes sure that people know that they have a choice in the matter, and they're not left back in the same boat where they feel like, oh, well, I thought I already voted on this. Well, no, we're back in the same boat we were in before. So that's why I would ask people to consider voting for this consensus.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Jay. Sorry, unless
Yeah, does somebody else want to speak that hasn't spoken to this? I don't know if everybody has.
I guess part of my thing is that it's not that I think that this will make it fail, it's that it opens the door for more semantics, like the semantics of 1 travel lane in each direction with a continuous turn lane in the middle is 3 lanes, but 2 travel lanes in each direction with a continuous turn lane in the middle is 4 lanes. It's all semantics, and so I feel like it opens the door to semantics. So if you're going to call this a 3-lane, then we need to call what it is, which is a 5 lanes.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if Larry's gone yet.
Larry did go, so that would, of course, you did too, George, right off the bat. So, Larry, I'm going to go with you because you had a very little one.
Well, one of the things that concerns me, and we've heard the comment tonight that we're on the 6th council that we've done this, and it seems like every time this has come before the people, there's just not been closure. And in my way of thinking, this amendment gives closure to the issue once and for all. I mean, if we just leave it open-ended and people say no, they don't want this particular street width or what have you, then we're right back at square one. If we want to make closure and we want to see some action and we want to proceed with streetscape, which is really what's behind the curbs, let's do something with this ballot issue that will bring it to closure and not just kick the can down the road again. And the whole issue, whether anyone wants to call it 3 lanes versus 4 lanes of travel road or 5 lanes in some places, let's bring it to closure, one way or the other. If this is going to be past the 3 lanes that we're showing here by the people, I'm all for it. But let's not come back next year and say, well, we need a different 3-lane option. I mean, let's be realistic here. If we want to be able to move on to something else, we have to figure out how to make this got closure. and be done with it. The people vote, and there's no doubt as to what they voted on.
I'm gonna hand the gavel to my Mayor Pro Tem so that I can speak to this. I do not believe that it's closure, because there's no ballot questions that we have. If you decide this way, this will happen. If you decide this way, another thing will happen. It instead, a ballot question is this, and you either add this or you don't get this. You don't usually put something else along with it. So I just wanted to comment on that. And yes, I've been here since I was young when this started. So I've been through a lot of it. But on the other hand, that's public process. The rec center took a couple of sessions. This is going to take some sessions. This is going to take some time. We have got a very big issue here, and a main street that's important to what has become all of us. Very important. So yes, it's going to take time, and we're going to have to keep massaging it and working with it until we get it right, until we get something passed that we then can go on with our lives with. So, all right. Mr. Fitzgerald.
I just would like to ask Councilwoman Duran some questions here. What is your vision of this? I mean, we had a previous presentation by Councilman Urban that we then found out could not work in the right-of-way that exists. And it is my belief, maybe I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, that if we went back to what you're asking for here, there would be no room for any of the other things, the amenity zones and sidewalks and bike lanes and all the other things. So I'm asking you, do you envision not working on those things at all and just repainting the street? Or do you envision buying right-of-way? And if so, how to pay for it?
Well, what I envision is the citizens to be able to have a say on how they want their 38th Avenue to look. I disagree with you saying that anyone who supports a 4-lane design is one-dimensional. I think that's insulting, not just to me, but to 700-800 people out there that voted not to narrow 38th Avenue. That didn't mean they didn't want amenities. That didn't mean they didn't want a main street or they didn't want to improve it. You know, I feel the same way. I want a main street. I want it improved. I want it to be a place, that's going to draw business in. We have a lot of businesses there that have been suffering for a while. They might be rebounding a little bit right now, but we have to consider all of them. So as far as, how to pay for that, I haven't gotten that far. Right now, I was focusing on having a solution. If this doesn't pass, if it passes, great. I'll support it. I'll go with it. It's done. If it doesn't, there needs to be some resolve at the end of this ballot question. That's my intent. And that's the intent of our community and our citizens out there, is they want some resolve. Now, I supported in the beginning process here for us to have 2 ballot questions. One was to honor the work of the 1,000 people that participated in the Create Your 38 process, as Councilor Wooden had mentioned, respecting and honoring that, and that was a complete reconstruction. And also Councilman Urban's design, giving the voters a choice. Nothing wrong with choices, but that wasn't supported. We didn't get the support for that. Here's what the consensus was this revised retrofit plan. So the revised retrofit plan, has the support. Citizens have a right to vote on this. I certainly hope, I think Speaker mentioned this evening that they don't want this to go to a vote. They want us to decide on this. I wouldn't support that at all, and I hope you wouldn't even consider that. This does need to go to the vote of the people. I just want some resolve at the end of that if it fails. It's that simple.
So I'm still asking, do you envision buying right-of-way, or?
If need to, yeah, I'd like us to work with property owners, stakeholders, if we need to. Have that conversation and say, listen, you know what, this ballot question didn't pass. Here's what the clause was in there. What can we do? Work with them, ask them. They're willing to.
So, and you envision putting a tax, something similar to what we were considering in the other plan?
Well, we could use, You're talking about for the repaving and restriping of the road?
Buying right away.
Yeah, I mean, we have capital improvement funds, do we not?
We have the $2 million set aside
We do.
for paving of 38th and the.
Well, those are discussions to be had. I think first we need to get past if I'm going to get a consensus for this or not, then we can have those conversations.
Mr. Pond hasn't had really an opportunity.
Well, I understand the concepts here, especially the one about finding a resolution. I don't support the consensus as it's written for the simple reason that I'm not in a position tonight to want to couple a ordinance that we're still working on with an ordinance that we're seeing here tonight, or so the way this is written, I will vote no. But that's why I was asking some of the questions about whether we had an opportunity to look at a draft for review. So this one is written as a consensus to include a second section in the ordinance, and I don't agree with that. If it stays as it is, then I will not support it.
Madam Mayor. Thank you. So would you?
Make it a little briefer.
I will speak my piece as I am able to do so.
We were told that these we have two big ones tonight, so
Yeah.
and I realize that they're very important. So apologize. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. So would you consider a separate ordinance related to this? Or is it that you're not willing to consider the ability to have that, I'm calling it a fail-safe option as a general concept, or is it as it relates to being attached to the ordinance in the call for election?
Well, it's somewhat both. I think I'm tracking with some of the things that other people have said. I'm not supporting necessarily this pathway for resolution or option, but most importantly, it's the language in this consensus that says include. So if that was scratched out, in other words, we're not creating consensus to include it in a future ordinance. What we're doing is making a consensus to consider this. And there's been some questions, by the way, about some of the language in here, how this is going to show up as it's drafted. Then maybe I'm willing to look at moving this forward in order to have some review, public comment, and council decision on the 25th. But that's not how it's written. So I mean, I can offer suggestions, or you can amend it.
Would you like to offer a suggested amendment to that then?
Well, simply stated, you take out the word include and say draft for review, public comment, and council direction.
So,
And the word as.
am I understanding that you would like further discussion on a resolution of this type or a consensus of this type versus attaching it to what we're trying to accomplish tonight? Would that be reasonable?
To draft a separate ordinance for consideration?
I'm just going to say
Make a consensus to direct the city attorney to draft a ordinance.
a second section in the ordinance, draft for review, public comment, and council consideration, a second section in the ordinance. In other words,
A second, I thought you said you didn't want it as a part
I
of that.
don't.
ordinance.
But the point is that it's going to come to us as a separate piece.
Mm.
That's what I'm saying. So you can just say a section, but we're going to see it as a separate. We're going to see it as a draft section to be included or not. It's a draft. We get to look at it and review it. If we do it on the 25th, we can have public comment on it,
Okay.
and we can make a decision. If you ask me for my decision tonight, based on what's written, then the answer is no.
All right. I need to to get a consensus from Ms. Wooden.
I'd just like to ask, I was sitting here when we said we wanted to do the Create Your 38 process, and Councilwoman Duran just said we should ask the people. And it was my understanding that that's what the Create Your 38 process was. We asked the people, and the overwhelming majority said 3 lanes. So, overwhelming majority.
You.
Not in a business meeting.
We have a section and a time for public comment, and this is our study session now. Public comment comes beforehand, and
No, the study session had my name on it.
and you and
I was asked definitely whether I could participate in the discussion, and I was told yes.
that must have been a misunderstanding.
Or I was told that we were going to speak first.
I'm sorry, sir. You've already had that opportunity, as everybody already.
I've been sitting here all the time. I didn't catch that.
You spoke at.
That was the general citizen speech. This is specific on dirt and 38th Avenue. And we were supposed to speak and get in the study.
Where's the sign up sheet?
Yeah, you know what? He was on both lists, and I thought you had mistakenly only put yourself on number.
I only spoke about the way the council is not listening to the citizens, and you tax and spend. That's all I talked about.
All right, I apologize to you because I thought that you only were going to speak once.
I'll talk about 38th Avenue when I left.
We're in the middle of this discussion. Will council allow?
Yes.
Because it's a
I will.
brand new process,
Right.
then I think that
Yes.
it's appropriate to allow
Yes.
them.
Your
For this
council,
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
And yes, and
Council
I
rules allow
apologize
you-
to.
yeah.
It's 3 minutes limit. Yes.
Well, just for the record, council rules allow you to waive the council rules.
Right.
So this would be one such.
This
And
would
just
be a
for the
sign where we would
purpose of the
allow-
record, we probably should take a motion to waive the council rules to allow the citizens to speak, understanding that there was a misunderstanding about the sign-up sheet. Someone want to make that motion?
Motion to waive the council rules.
Second.
We need to vote on that, other than,
Oh, well, we
Please
can't
vote.
really, we're in a study session.
that's right.
Who's the second?
All right, yeah, consensus, okay.
Oh.
Exactly, thank you for that.
Consensus, okay.
Mr. Shirley, I do apologize, please come forward and speak. For 3 minutes.
First presentation made several years ago, District 1 and 2. I was called and I asked the presentation, did you go to the owners and the property owners or the business operators whether or not they approved this program? The presentation said no. I said, I feel that you're wasting the time, taxpayers' time and money. And I asked for the vote, and he says, well, that's your opinion. Mr. Goff said that right to me, too. Later on, we had a vote. Majority of the people, citizens of Wheat Ridge, voted against 3 lanes. It was 4 lanes. Oh, no, we're not going to do that, council says. We're going to continue to do it. Went to District 3 and 4. Now, by the hands of the people, 90%, I estimated 90% was against going what you're doing now. Doing the whole project, you wasted thousands of dollars. Now, on the District 3 and 4, it was a pretty closer vote. But the majority of the people voted against it. Now, this cutting out paper, trees, and cars was rigged towards having a 3-lane. Our table, we had 7. We had 3 that wanted 4 lanes, the other 4 wanted, so we played the game. There was only one table out of about 30 that says, here, 4 lanes, forget it, people. The vote of the people should be listened to, and you haven't been doing that. And I predict that you put it to the vote of the people the right way, they'll vote against it, and this 0.25% is still a big question. There's always overrides on these projects. It shouldn't happen. And so I feel that the vote of the people will vote it down on the basis of cost. Put it to election of the vote of the people for the taxes, okay? If the taxes go through and it's worded right, I predict it will not pass, and all this time and effort you people have put in is a waste of taxpayers' time and money. It is a ridiculous form of government when citizens can't speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and once again, I do apologize for not bringing you up sooner. All right, we were at...
I would like to go back to the discussion. Why did we do Create Your 38? Because I remember sitting here and we said, 2B has failed, what are we going to do? And we said, let's go back to another public process of asking what people want. That was my understanding. And I have to respect that. We went back to the people and we asked what they wanted, and they told us. And so I have to respect that. I guess we can discuss why did we do the Create Your 38 process? Why did we spend the money? Because we wanted to find out from the people what they wanted. My second comment I want to make is on the speed limit, and Mr. Westberg can probably help me, but it was my understanding that previously the posted speed limit was 35, but the traffic studies came out that the average speed people were actually traveling was 47.
That's correct.
So I don't feel that's a scare tactic. I feel like that's a fact. If the actual speed limit that people were traveling was 47 and the posted speed limit was 35, that was how fast people were traveling regardless of the posted limit. And that was with the 4 lanes with the middle turn lane. So I think that is an important fact to consider in the conversation. I don't feel that it was a scare tactic. I do feel that faster traffic will not be conducive to a Main Street atmosphere that we're looking for. And that is why I keep bringing it up, because I do feel that it's important.
Okay, we've had a lot of discussion on the request for a consensus.
Can I respond to her?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I don't know if this helps your discussion or not, but I wanted to quote you from the June 6th study session. Councilmember Davis received consensus for a plan declaring that if the ballot issue fails, we come up with a plan for 4 lanes, a plan of what it would go to. You decided that once.
Yes, I recall that. Thank you, Janelle.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So, to Councilmember Wooden's question, why do we do the Create Your 38th, and how do we effectively listen to the output of that process? And as we look at the outcome of the Create Your 38th process, and as we look at that outcome and we see that that outcome came very close to what was previously derived and presented to the voters under the 2B initiative, it's important to then consider that output becomes very similar in respect to having a very similar outcome to 2B, in the sense that if you ask the same question again, you're going to get a similar answer. And so in my mind, I want to make sure that if we go back to the voters, and I'm not talking about this design, I'm talking about as it relates to the Create Your 38th, if we were to look at the output of that process and consider going back to the voters and asking them the same question twice, coming up with an alternative, a specific alternative to saying to them that this is something that if we go to them and ask them the same question twice, I want to make sure that we have something, some kind of fail-safe that says, no matter what, we have some kind of action to take beyond that, so that no matter what, we come up with something to do with 38th after November. And that was, the purpose in coming up with this consensus, or to consider going to a 4-lane design or a center turn lane with 2 lanes, which would be 5 lanes where permissible, is not to negate that create your 30th process. It's to ensure that if that question were to fail, because of the fact that we've already asked it once, had we never asked it before, then that would be okay. We've never asked it before, let's just ask it and see where it lands. But because we've already asked that question once, it's making sure that we come up with some final answer to the question. And that's why, to your question of why would we come up with this if we've got the create your 30th question? It's because we've already asked the question once, and to know that we have some kind of fail-safe option. That's why.
Are we ready to give me a show of hands on this, or?
Well, she's got to read the consensus.
I'm sorry, can I interject one thing as a staff guy?
Certainly.
In your consensus, you talk about doing something by March 31st of 2017. We generally don't do paving until much later in the year. If it could just change that deadline to maybe it's included in the 2017 CIP or something, but March, they don't even have asphalt running at that time, so we couldn't possibly meet that particular deadline. So,
thank you, Mark.
Okay, thanks. So do you want me to change that now? To July 31st, or?
Or if you could just say the 2017 CIP.
I think would be the best way, because
It's probably usually August, September usually.
we get really good prices because we give the contractor a lot of flexibility when he comes to town. It may be later in the year, it could be late early fall or something like that. So.
Okay. All right. I would like to make a consensus to direct the city attorney to include, as a second section in the ordinance referring to election, the previously discussed ballot question on 38th Avenue, the following: that in the event the ballot question fails at the election, that the following action will be taken. Early fall 2017, the entirety of 38th Avenue from Wadsworth to Sheridan shall be repaved and striped to a 4-lane configuration, which includes 2 lanes of traffic in each direction, with a continuous turn lane where permissible.
Do you want to do a show of hands?
Yeah, to consent.
Please give me a show of hands then if you agree with the consensus. Okay, that consensus didn't pass, which would put us back to the original discussion which was brought before us.
Staff report.
The staff report, and we need to act on whether we're going to go forward with that, which is, there were several requirements to do that.
Mayor. So one of the things that staff has asked us to do is to look at recommending the previous traffic consultant, the Mueller Engineering, to be hired to perform an analysis to determine the actual vehicle capacity of the street.
Right.
And so regardless if we attach anything to the ballot language or not, then that's probably something that needs to be done. So can we knock that consensus? Can I make that consensus, knock it out? So I'd like to ask for consensus to hire the consultant from Mueller Engineering to perform an analysis to determine the actual vehicle capacity of the street.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Question on that?
How long does that take?
You know, we haven't approached them on that. I think they could do that fairly quickly if they've still got the model set up and everything, but we haven't asked them that question. We thought it was premature to ask without getting direction. We'll certainly push them as hard and as fast as we possibly can to get an answer as quick as we can.
Okay.
Can we have a show of hands for that consensus?
Show of hands, please, on that one.
It's the Mueller Engineering to do the traffic capacity on the street.
It was mentioned in the presentation.
There's the previous traffic consultant. They're looking to do that.
It's for the capacity.
No.
Okay.
Okay, what did we, can I see that again, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, that one passed. Can we go forward then with the rest of it, or is there something else?
Yeah, and so
It's, I can't.
my only question on the, because now we're looking at the ballot language, is it says, shall the city of Wheat Ridge taxes be increased by up to 1.8 million annually in the first full fiscal year, and by whatever additional amounts are raised annually thereafter for 2 years, by increasing the rate of sales and use tax levied by the city by 1/4% with the proceeds of taxes to be used for revitalization of 38th Avenue corridor between Upham Street and Pierce Street with a 3-lane Main Street business district to include amenity zones with landscaping and seating areas, improvements to pedestrian sidewalks, on-street parking, bike lanes, public art, and a new community plaza. Total project estimated at $4.5 million. Such increase in the sales and use tax rate to begin on January 1st, 2017, and ending on December 31st, 2019, and any such amount raised above $4.5 million will be deposited in the Capital Improvement Fund, and shall the revenues raised by such sales and use tax rate increase be collected and spent by the city as a voter-approved revenue change pursuant to Article X, Section 20 of the Colorado Constitution. In that, can we add where it says revitalization of 38th Avenue corridor within the existing curbs? Or should we just leave that out? Just leave it out? Okay.
Mr. Goff, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, you could add that, yeah, if you
to
chose.
you.
Yeah, that's very general language. The legal language is in the beginning and final paragraphs. You can pretty much put anything you want in the bulleted sentence as long as it's factual, obviously.
Did you want to explain?
I would like to see, I would like for it to be clear that it's within the existing curbs.
Yeah.
But if everybody else is okay. So then, I would like to make a consensus to move this draft ballot language forward to the July 25th council approval of the election resolution with the addition of adding the words within the existing curb. After the word corridor.
Is it the existing curbs though, or is it the curb line? Because it's not the existing curb.
Oh, right, curb line.
Flow line.
You're right, flow line. That's gonna get confusing. Just leave it out, never mind. That's gonna get too confusing.
So you've decided.
So you're not
I
having
decided to
it?
scratch that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Without changing street widths?
Without change,
Well, it just,
But
I think it just gets
Confusing
confusing.
too.
Yeah, let's just leave it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So now is your consensus the same, but leaving, you're not going to make any change?
No changes.
All right. Are we ready for that consensus?
Larry has a question.
Sure.
I have a question on the ballot issue, and it's a mechanical deal. What would be the earliest we start spending money on this? And if we have not generated enough cash flow from the sales tax in early 2017, where does the money come from to proceed or continue to proceed with design and perhaps, mobilization is always an upfront deal and what have you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. As you see, the ballot question doesn't contemplate any bonding, so we're not going to get all the money up front. So it would have to be phased as the revenues come in. So we wouldn't, if it did pass, we would have potentially a 1.8 by the end of 2017. I think 2017 would mostly be design, so construction probably wouldn't happen until 18 anyway. But yeah, we wouldn't have all 4.8 until the end of the 3 years.
Okay, so then the extra money just would go in an escrow type account, whatever, for 38th.
Yep.
Mark, there were some specific time things anyway, as I recall.
Just on getting the ballot language and stuff, and there's not a timing on the construction of the street. We could do it, we could phase it, we'll probably have to phase it anyway in some form or fashion. We can release that, as we do the design, we can get better cost estimates done, we can figure out, we have $2 million by the time we start the first construction phase, we'll figure out what we can do for $2 million and do that part of it. Maybe it's the south side, or it's the north side, or it's this piece in here, it's all those things can be answered, we get through design and we get moving along.
Just a clarification on the consensus. I think there's at least one pending, and there may be more pending work that's happening between now and the 25th. Not just bringing it forward for the election resolution, but it sounds like you still have review of the cost estimate at least, and so I want to make sure that's
yeah. The two items really we need further direction on council tonight is, do you want to continue moving forward with the plan as presented this evening, and we're going to refine that more with cost and the 3D or the 3D rendering, so you have a better graphic or view of it. And then we'll continue working on the language. We can bring that all back for the 25th, the language on the ballot question.
Is that the consensus then?
So I'll clarify. So, sorry to do this to you, Janelle.
Well, I'm thinking you have to do one before the other.
One before the other, yeah. So I feel like the consensus to move forward with the design as presented needs to go first. So I would like to make a consensus to move forward with the design as presented tonight. With the additional work. Show of hands.
Show of hands on that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right.
And the second consensus then would be to move forward with the draft ballot language as presented, to look for approval and a resolution on July 25th. Show of hands, please.
Before you do that, may I ask that, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to look at the sort of the legal language in the first part and the second part. The stuff in the middle is the description, which is fine, as Patrick mentioned. But there's just a little bit of tightening that I would like to do to make it track the kind of Tabor question language you see. It's pretty close. There's nothing substantive, but I'm happy to do that if you just direct that I fly-spec it for Tabor compliance is really all I want to do as a part of that language that you'll see on the 25th and several times after that. Thank you.
So I would like to make a consensus to move the ballot language forward as presented with the city attorney reviewing for compliance to be presented on July 25th for council approval of a resolution. Show of hands, please.
Madam Mayor, so I want to clarify, we have 3 consensus, to hire Mueller Engineering, proceed with the design as presented tonight, and move the ballot language forward with tightening word and all that. Okay, 3 things, all right.
Tabor compliance. All right. Do we need to complete anything else in there? These other steps follow through, I take it. Are we good here on this one now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
So we actually can move on to the second item?
Yes, thank you. The next item on your agenda this evening is a report back on the DIRT Task Force recommendations again, and consider potential funding for, no, I don't, thank you. Funding for any or all of the recommendations. As you can see in I won't go into the background of the DIRT Task Force. I think we've talked about that for quite a bit, but you created another task force for this year. They reviewed the priorities that the 2007 task force put in place. They presented their recommendations to City Council on June 13th. So we're bringing those back to you tonight, and you have that full list in your packet as an attachment, but in the memo, we did highlight the top 10 priorities that the task force recommended and put a real brief description of what that project would be. In case, if you do decide if you want to move forward with a tax increase or a ballot question for money for these, this could be the description on the ballot. And then also an estimated cost expense for each of these 10 projects. And then also in the memo at the end, I show what different tax rates would raise if you decide you would like to look at a sales tax increase. There's 4 different rates going from a quarter to a full penny And then if you want to sunset it after 5, 10, 15, or 20 years, it gives you an estimate. I didn't take into account any inflation or anything, so these are just some estimates of what these different tax rates would raise over different periods of time. So we'd like to discuss with you this evening if there's any direction or desire to move forward with asking the public, the citizens, to fund any of these projects.
And I get it that we have kind of the same deadline as well.
We do.
Yep.
Sorry for the ballot language.
I see Mr. Pond is ready to jump in.
Yeah, I just want to lay down at least one point of discussion and see if that helps us move forward. But as we've talked, there's been about 2 different items, or whether they're on and how much money. There's a lot in the matrix. Obviously, there's a lot of options here. And the one that stands out to me as being perhaps reasonable in both the tax rate increase as well as the duration of a sunsetted tax, and I think we all previously agreed that was a reasonable way to do it, is 50 cents for 10 years. I just want to kind of throw that out and see how people felt about that. I think it's hard to attack this list unless we, either say, I don't know, we're going to try to do the whole thing, which obviously is a significant amount for a significant length of time, or else we're going to try to make a rate increase for a certain time. I just was wondering what people's thoughts are about where the sweet spot is. I'm looking at 50 cents over 10 years.
Other thoughts on that? Ms. Durant's ready.
I was looking at 50 cents over 5 years, and I was looking at prioritizing the need from the 10, either picking the top 2 or 3 that would fit in to that 5 years, so that we would have something completed, something to show for our tax increase, instead of doing a little bit of everything, over 10 years and getting nothing done. I did have a few questions I was going to ask regarding the gold line. If you could, Patrick, give us more specifics as to, I know you emailed me some information, but if you could share that with everyone.
Sure, yeah, and we do have, I think Scott's you still awake back there, Scott? And Scott can help, but as you know, we've made several improvements already to the gold line up there, a lot of drainage improvements. We're making improvements to Tabor Street, but if we did have additional money, we could pay for some of the street network infrastructure that's required for development in advance, that would be a cost that the city could underwrite, and the developer wouldn't have to do it. It might make the project more feasible in a more timely fashion if some of that public infrastructure is in and paid for. So utilities, street networks, bike ped improvements, anything that's going to enhance and catalyze private development in that area would be helpful. I don't know if that answers your question or not. And Scott, maybe if you want to give a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. There's a variety of different improvements that could be done up there. Timing with redevelopment and so forth. We have nearly completed the reconstruction of Tabor Street just south of the railroad tracks, but some other needs up there are Ridge Road from the station going east to the Arvada border, where they've already done some improvements. We've already done some preliminary studies on that. Traffic signal out on Ward Road and the Ridge Road extension, 52nd Avenue. Those are some things that kind of stand out more obviously over time, but depending on what kind of interest and redevelopment efforts we get also as well, with the bike ped improvements, as Patrick discussed, we've come up with some preliminary plans for those. So there's a variety of different things that could be done out there, but phased in accordance with how fast things move out there with potential redevelopment as well.
Any type of amenity features?
Well, that's something that could always be considered as we go deeper into design on some of these things. Sure, like on Ridge Road.
Mm-hmm. So where are we compared to Arvada with what they're doing on their end?
They've done some improvements in their areas on Ridge Road right now, east of where our borders are. So what we would do is try to, meet with what they've done. Some of it's already been done by them. Some of the stretches they're already, they're more in the engineering phase, nearing construction. But we've also been in close coordination, discussion with them on some of the bike ped improvements and, just making sure that we're on the same page with what we're doing up there.
And another example, maybe Monica or Mr. Ann, on Arvada at the Old Town Station, they put a significant amount of public money into the parking garage structure that will service their old town, downtown, and the city of Arvada has put quite a bit of public funds into that. So that's an option for our site too. If we get significant amount of development interest that requires a parking structure, we could use funds for that. RTD is giving us just a surface lot with a certain amount of spots, but depending on how the site redevelops, we could need more parking.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I would like everyone to really kind of consider having the Gold Line station in their consideration, because I think it's really, it could really be something really unique and something worth building on for Wheat Ridge in our community.
I think I got Ms. Wooden first.
My comment is that I would like to suggest 0.75 for a longer time, 15 and 20 years, and this is why. The Gold Line project is super important, and it helps the city, it helps our tax base, it helps our development. But the citizens that are here on their direct payback for what they might see is going to come more along the lines of number 5. Or number 3, Clear Creek Trailhead Connections, or number 5, Anderson Prospect Park and Recreation Center. And that there has to be a time that we invest in ourselves, that we invest in our city and we take it seriously, and that our citizens can see the payback for that. So yes, I agree, Gold Line is super important and we have to pay attention to that. And I also feel like giving our citizens better capital improvements that they can use weekly, their families, their kids, that they can use in the next 5 years is very important. That if we have capital improvements and dirt task force prioritization that, maybe in 15 or 20 years we'll get to that Anderson Park, that doesn't help the family with a 5-year-old right now. They want some park that they can take their kid to for baseball, that they can take their kid to for lessons at the rec center and to use for swimming and to use the facilities in their city right now. So I am very much in favor of 0.75 for 15 and 20 years because we need to invest in ourselves.
I'm going to go to this side now. Ms. Hoppe.
Well, I agree with Genevieve about the parks and that stuff being important, and I agree with Monica about the Gold Line, and I agree with George about 50 cents or half of 1 cent for 10 years. I feel like once you get into the 15 and 20 years, it's more like in perpetuity. And so what I did is I looked at 0.25 of 1 cent for 5 years, what could I do? And I wrote down a little list. And then 0.25 for 10 years, what could I do? I wrote down a list. For a half a cent for 5 years, I wrote down a list. And for a half a cent for 10 years, I wrote down a list. And believe it or not, Genevieve, for a half a cent for 10 years, we could do the Gold Line, we could do Clear Creek, we could do Prospect Park and Anderson Park, we could do Wadsworth, we could do 38th and Kipling, and then we could also, I would really, although it's not part of the DIRT task force, would like to see some funds go to public safety and for our police department. And I know that things like body cameras and personal safety issues for them, we could put some money there. And then we would also have a little bit of extra money that we could have go into the capital improvements budget. And we're done in 10 years. We can't fool ourselves to say that in 15 years, our priorities are not going to change in our community. And so we're going to lock in to these several projects for 15 years. That's why I think it needs to be a shorter amount of time. And then I also feel like that we should be conscientious about the money that we're asking from people who spend money here. And that's not just the people who live here, but people who come here because of the lower tax rate. And so we would still be maintaining less than a penny if all things on the ballot, sales tax related, passed. And so those are my those are my suggestions. I mean, I have one that says the Gold Line, Wadsworth, and just the officers. I have one that says Wadsworth, Clear Creek, and just the officers. And then I have Gold Line, Wadsworth, and just the cops at a longer rate, lesser amount. So those are kind of my suggestions.
Mayor, can I just make a quick clarification before other people speak? Just on the dollar amounts that could be raised, keep in mind that this doesn't take into account any bonding expense if you did want to bond these dollars. So, you have a couple options. You could go as pay as you go and just over a 10-year, if you wanted to go 50 cents for 10 years, you could spend as you bring the new money in, put it in a special account. But if you want to get these projects done sooner than 10 years, like in a 5-year period or something, you're going to have to bond against this sales tax increase, which is going to decrease the amount. You're going to be paying some interest, so it's going to decrease the amount that you're actually having to pay to give on projects. So if council wants to move forward in some format, we can, and if you want a bond to get the projects done in a shorter period of time, we can put some numbers together based on that. So just want to clarify that.
So you're just letting us know that it could be more if we want to get it done faster.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm kind of wondering if maybe we shouldn't get down to how many years as you originally suggested to make that. Would it be simpler to wade through these? Not necessarily. All right, go ahead and speak then, please, Mr. Fitzgerald.
I sort of did the same thing of figuring out what we had to pay for, or what we could paid for based on what we could tax for and for what length. I also looked at the dirt task force list, and to me, the most important thing is the Wadsworth reconstruction, because if we don't do this, if we don't get money for this, we're going to lose $25 million. The second thing is Clear Creek Crossing, because that will help us attract businesses or users for that site, which we need. And then, of course, the task force number one item was the Gold Line station. So if you take those three things, we get down to $25 million that we need right away. The problem with that is that, have in your life, you have sometimes you have this choice whether you have to either decide to contribute to your retirement account, which is no fun, or buy yourself a new car, which would be a great thing to do. And I think all of these projects are projects that nobody feels like they got anything out of it. These are just sort of the necessary foundational things to keep the city going. And I would rather have some things in addition where people could feel that they got something for their money. So I would like to bond, for one thing, so that we can do some of these visible things immediately, and people could really feel like they got something. My preference would be more on the line of what Jen said. If we did 0.75 and the other 0.25 passed, we'd have just a straight 1% tax increase. And it would still leave us in line with or below many cities in the metropolitan area. And those cities, of course, have higher property tax than we do. So that wouldn't make our sales tax outrageous. And we know that half of our sales tax is paid by people who don't live in Wheat Ridge. So I would go rather with the 0.75. And I'm more inclined to go 20 years, but I'll certainly go 15 years. And my idea there is that although I agree with the fact that the needs are going to change, we don't know what those needs are now because we can't see in the future. I do agree that that's a problem here that I hope we can find some way to resolve. But if we don't go this kind of long period, what's going to happen is another council like us is going to be sitting here 5 years from now or 10 years from now doing this whole thing all over again. So I would rather just sort of get some of this done anyway. Our needs are not going to go away, even with higher rates and longer periods, because we have 23 absolutely necessary items, and we're only going to be talking about attacking 5 or 6 of them, or maybe a little more. So anyway, that's where I am. I agree with Jan. I'd go with 0.75, and I'll compromise on 15 years, and I would like to bond.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would say that we would want to focus on those projects that would have the greatest shot at giving us additional tax revenue over the longest haul, and then prioritize backwards from that, and looking at the Clear Creek Crossing as our greatest shot at generating additional tax revenue, and listing that as number 1, the Gold Line station as number 2, and if we had to put the Wadsworth widening project in this, which I'm not necessarily in favor of putting that into here, but if we have to, I would like to see us otherwise budget for that, but I would like to see those 3 projects in here, and I would like to see a 5 to 10 year timeline for this, and have it be at a 0.5% increase. And what we can do then is, if we have a 0.5% increase over a 5 to 10 year period, and in the next 5 to 10 years we're able to complete these projects, we've then created additional opportunities for sales tax for ourselves, which hopefully has increased our revenue opportunities, and then shown the voters that we've done well by them to spend these monies well, and thereby, if in the instance where this is a sunsetted provision, we can go back and say, would you like us to consider an additional 5 or 10 years at that time? But if you look at how the school district has performed over time, they have taken bites at the apple over time. They haven't gone out and said, we're going to do everything at once. They have said, we're going to go out, we're going to spend a reasonable amount of money over a reasonable amount of time, show you that we're prudent with the money that we've spent, and that's, I think, an approach that we should take as well, to say that if you're willing to give us a half-penny sales tax increase over a 5 to 10 year period of time, and I'm not sure the best, and I'm saying 5 to 10 because I'm not sure the bonding capacity and all that, but and the specific dollar amounts, because the Clear Creek Crossing and the Gold Line, I don't have projects and dollar amounts. I have dollar amounts but no projects, so I don't know what that looks like. With the Wadsworth project, I have a project and a dollar amount, but I would prefer that we otherwise budget for that, but I get that it's difficult to do that. So I think that if we are looking at this as an opportunity to sell to the voters a way to say, if we are able to get a sales tax increase and we invest that sales tax increase into these opportunities, we're going to get even more sales tax revenue from these specific areas. And these specific areas are I-70, the light rail, and Wadsworth, the 3 main arteries into our city, which are our opportunity to reach, like we said, the half of the individuals who do not live in the city who are paying that sales tax anyway. So as we go to that argument of the sales tax being paid by individuals outside of the city, it's important to show that these projects are focused on reaching those customers who are coming from outside of the city. And these projects reach those individuals. As it relates to trying to develop projects to get people bang for their buck, these projects give people bang for their buck. They see what these are. They know what they are. Giving people a park or otherwise, I hope people can see the Clear Creek Crossing and the Gold Line and Wadsworth as being completed and knowing that that's where their money went. But and the other thing, as much as the providing for a solid line item in the budget for the police and making sure that we've taken care of that line item, I don't think a sales tax increase for that would be advisable, just in the vein of making sure that we're looking at specific projects over a specific time frame and showing a clear deliverable to people so that we're not coming back to them and saying, well, we kind of spent it over here, we kind of spent it over here. I want to go back and say that we spent it right here and this is what you got out of it, so that down the road that there's a way to, something to show for it. So that would be my preference.
Great. Has everybody given their, I think so. Mr. Matthews, did you want to?
Yeah, I was a little bit hard to think about what to do here because there are not projects associated with some of these, and it's kind of a pig in a poke or whatever that old saying is. I was a little curious, do we consider it necessary that Clear Creek get accessed off of I-70 rather than Highway 58?
Yeah, it's required as part of the FONSI that was done, the environmental assessment, that hook ramps are constructed off I-70. And that would allow, and right now, and I think we have a scheduled update with council coming up next week, July 8th, the Clear Creek Crossing update that potential developer is going to come in, and we're going to give an update on the potential development and also the traffic study. Hook ramps are required. Yeah. The second, if they want to build additional square footage, a new interchange off Highway 58 would have to be constructed. But at this point, the developer's just looking at a certain amount of square footage that wouldn't require that new interchange right now.
If I may once again comment, I'm once going to release the gavel because this one's important to me. It really is. And I tend to agree that we need to figure out how to generate income as well as buy things that are nice to have, and therefore I support those things that do generate income, such as Clear Creek Crossing. As we all know or may know, that there's some genuine interest in that area, and that could be a very, very important area of income for us. I also support Wadsworth, that boulevard, because we've received that grant. We have to come up with matching funds, and there isn't a citizen out there that doesn't say, if you talk about Wadsworth, they throw up their hands and because of the amount of traffic on it. So as far as talking to our citizens, we need something that they understand and can appreciate what we need, how badly we need to change Wadsworth. Gold Line has got lots of possibilities, and I also like the Anderson, the park area, so that we have something that we're right now that our citizens can enjoy. So that's my input on it. And I also agree that we do not want to go on for 20 years because things do change. And 5 years, 10 years seems to me is long enough before who knows what will happen, and another council will want to go a different direction. And I like 50 cents because it's under, we had 25 cents to it. Or even, I don't mind rounding off to $1, but I wanted to add my 2 cents. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. George?
Well, something, I'm just trying to figure out how much direction we can give, how much we need to give in order to make sure that we get, there's just something would take the Gold Line at 8, Anderson at 11, which is a combination of 8 and 3, so it's building and park. Wadsworth at 5, which is discounted from here, which is kind of saying we could do it both ways, a little bit here and some in the budget. Clear Creek at 10, and that's 34. So you're right. You're right there. But you can't bond against that at 50 at 10. So I'm just wondering. Those are the 3 or 4 things that I heard that kind of came through. I'm sure we could dice this up more. But if that was, if we were feeling good about that, then the question might be whether or not bonding was really important, because I think we'd have to go up to a 15-year at 50 to bond against all of that, roughly. Is that?
Yeah.
I don't think we could do a 15-year.
I'd rather sit at 10.
And that might be the direction, if you can come to some agreement on the percentage increase and then a time period, we can see if we could get some quick bond runs.
Okay.
For maybe the July 25th meeting, and give you an idea of what that looks like, how many of these projects, and if you could tonight, I don't know if you can or not, maybe come up with the top 3 or top 5 projects, and then we can back into it and say, well, if you want to do just 50 cents at 10 years max, and if you want to bond it, this is what you can get done. That might be a direction to give us.
Yeah.
I would put out there that the Clear Creek Crossing, the Gold Line, and Wadsworth at a 10-year 0.5% sales tax, and just as it relates to ability to invest in things that would bring money back into the city, and then looking at how that bonds out, but.
And then you can further refine it at the next meeting if there's.
Yeah, because
I'd agree
that
with
scenario, if we were to agree on those top 3, leaves room for variables to come in underneath that as much as 12 million, I think. So.
Y'all hear that down here on this end? So we're looking at 10 years. We're looking at Wadsworth, Clear Creek, and Gold Line. That's our top 3. 10 years. Was it 50 cents?
50 cents.
50.
That's true.
It's not 50 cents. Y'all know what I mean.
Now, I still am going to go back to, what is a citizen going to see themselves for that? Could we extend it to 5 projects?
We're talking through now.
Well, that's why if we just, first of all, if we just gave those top 3 at the 50%, at the 0.5, whatever, 0.5. For 10 years, there's still actually considerable room, I believe. So we're missing at least 1 or 2 projects that can be included in the revenues that are projected for that period. I was suggesting that they were Anderson Park related, which I think are things that the citizens would see and are services that they need. But there could be others in here that can be captured. So
I feel very strongly that something has to be said in the ballot language, that it's not just these nebulous projects that someone may say, yeah, that needs to happen on Wadsworth, but we need to show something directly to the citizen that they could use and see. I just feel really strongly about that.
I think George was saying that if we get this bond runs, there might be some room to put a couple other things on the ballot in addition to the top 3 that.
Specifically say it has to be said.
But if we build bond money into that, there's not going to be enough money to add anything to.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look at what the rates are right now and to see how much I mean, I think it's best if you see from a base of what 50 cents over 10 years is going to get you, and then if it doesn't get you, if it gets you the top 3, then maybe there's a little extra money. You could throw something else in, or maybe it's not going to get you the top 3. I don't know. I don't know what the rates are right now. I haven't looked at bonding. They're still pretty good, so it's the time to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we go 12 years.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, you could look at it's like you may say, well, maybe do 11 years or 12 years and maybe do 0.6 or something if it takes you over an edge that might satisfy all your needs. I don't know. But if we could start from somewhere at a base, that would give you an idea. So 50 cents, 10 years, those top three to start, and we'll bring those numbers back.
I'll move that consensus forward that that we look at a half penny sales tax over a 10-year period of time with a top three priority of the Gold Line, the Clear Creek Crossing, and the Wadsworth Boulevard project, with the remaining to be determined on specific projects, not open-ended, but specific projects. Was there anything else? And such as the Anderson Park.
Other projects on the list.
Other projects that are spelled out on that list. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. All in favor?
Staff looks at bonding. You got it?
And then staff looks at bonding.
This is just initial. We'll bring back numbers, and we'll bring it back on July 25th. Somebody will, because I'm on vacation. I just realized that. We'll figure it out.
Okay. We have an 11 o'clock deadline. We maybe want to sit around and talk. We can't.
Or you could slam your gavel and let us go home. No more chit chat.
I don't know.